Chapter 1231. A beam of light flashed across the western sky. It was so bright and dazzling that it looked like a meteor streaking across the sky. However, this flowing light was extremely bright even in the daytime. It even overshadowed the sunlight in the sky. However, this light did not make people feel warm at all. Instead, it had a cold texture, like cold metal. The light stayed in the sky above West Hill City for a while. A terrifying demonic aura spread out, as if it was going to slaughter the world. When the light dissipated, the figure of a fierce white tiger was revealed. Its eyes flashed with a cold and demonic light. There was no emotion in them. It was a pure-blooded white tiger great demon at the initial tribulation stage. It was only a step away from the Dharma-ending realm. Its magical powers and demonic power were extremely powerful. The appearance of the white tiger made the people of the Great Qin dynasty nervous again. Although most people knew that the pure-blooded white tiger was captured by Lin Feng years ago, and rarely appeared in the world after that, the sudden appearance of the white tiger great sage in West Hill City still made the hearts of the people of the Great Qin dynasty hang in suspense. Even though the white tiger great sage had pledged allegiance to the celestial sect of the Celestial Sect of Wonders, his sudden appearance at this critical juncture was enough to make many human cultivators shudder in fear. They could not figure out what he was thinking. Even Lu Yuan the great sage felt a little nervous when he saw the white tiger great sage. The white tiger great sage was much stronger than him. Shi Tianhao's expression was relatively calm. He looked up at the white tiger great sage and said with a smile, "Your Excellency, have you come out of seclusion?" The white tiger great sage stopped in the void and nodded. "Yes, it's not too late. I can still make it in time." His voice was cold, like the clashing of gold and iron. He continued, "After learning that I have come out of seclusion, the sect master has ordered me to come here to receive the temple master of the Taishu Temple, Yan Nanlai." Hearing the words Taishu Temple, Shi Tianhao curled his lips and did not say anything. Ever since the Taishu Temple accepted Shi Tianyi as a disciple despite knowing what had happened in the past, he had never had a good impression of this number one holy land of the human race. When the Taishu Temple tried to use his parents as bait to send him, Zhu Yi, and the others into the mysterious sea, forcing his master, Lin Feng, to enter the mysterious sea to fight against the Dragon Clan, his good impression of him, which was already in the negatives, completely fell into the abyss. However, Shi Tianhao was well aware of the changes in the current situation, and the key points. He knew what to do at the right time. Not to mention that Lin Feng ordered White Tiger Great Sage to go to the rescue. Even if Lin Feng ordered him to go to the rescue himself, he would not object. Of course, this didn't prevent him from gloating when he found out about the predicament the Taishu Temple was in. And he laughed so hard that he couldn't stand straight. Just like Master said, the king of the underworld is really patient. Previously, he had been helping West Hill City block the disaster, and after that he had immersed himself in cultivation. At this moment, after hearing White Tiger Great Sage's words from Lin Feng, Shi Tianhao finally understood how Yan Nanlai had risked his life to break out of the White Cloud Mountain. The smile on Shi Tianhao's face lessened a little. So the king of the underworld took drastic measures and used Yan Xinghe's evil soul to shake the Haotian mirror. And Yan Nanlai's plan was to use the Blood Soul Tranquility Curse to similarly take drastic measures and curse his own ancestor, Yan Xinghe, to death? At the mention of the Blood Soul Tranquility Curse, White Tiger Great Sage and Lu Yuan Great Sage's expressions were still normal, but they didn't look happy either. Although the demon race had already resolved the threat of the Blood Soul Curse many years ago, the threat and damage that this curse had brought to the demon race was real. When White Tiger Great Sage and Lu Yuan Great Sage were born, the Blood Soul Curse was no longer effective. However, they naturally knew about what had happened in the past from their clan's inheritance. It's also possible that he used this opportunity to escape from White Cloud Mountain alone, and the idea of dying together was just an excuse. White Tiger Great Sage said faintly, "But the sect master feels that this person can be trusted. Moreover, no egg can remain intact when the Haotian mirror is destroyed. The Taishu Temple is very likely to be destroyed." Shi Tianhao said, "According to Mr. Miao, this master of Yen Monastery is an extreme conservative in the Taishu Temple. He shouldn't be lying and trying to drag out an ignoble existence, so he can be trusted." If he really has such a determination, although his previous actions are disgusting, his actions today are worthy of admiration. White Tiger Great Sage said coldly, I'm not interested in this person. What I'm interested in are the Yudu beasts that are chasing him. Shi Tianhao smiled. The father of White Tiger in front of him, the previous White Tiger Great Sage, had fallen under the hands of the Yudu race many years ago. Shi Tianhao was naturally clear about his hatred towards the Yudu race. White Tiger Great Sage's abilities were much stronger than those of the Great Sage of Lu Yuan Great Sage, and his character was also more unyielding. Although he had been subdued by Lin Feng for many years, during the battle between Lin Feng and Mirage Sun and Yudu, White Tiger Great Sage's autonomy was undoubtedly much higher. It was still a question how effective the restrictions that Lin Feng had placed on him could be. But now that the Yudu race had descended, Lin Feng wasn't worried that White Tiger Great Sage would bite back. That was because compared to the human race, White Tiger Great Sage's most hostile target was Yudu. White Tiger Great Sage, who had been cultivating in seclusion, came out now. This could be used to deal with Yudu, and White Tiger Great Sage was more than happy to do so. There are many conditions for Yin Nanlai to execute the Curse of Blood Soul Tranquility. First, there's a limit to the distance. He has to get close to the king of the underworld in Yin Xinghe, and he needs time to execute the spell. If he's chased by Yudu, even if he can escape, he won't be able to execute the spell. Shi Tianhao said. Other than him, it's too difficult for others to confirm the location of the king of the underworld and the rest, so we'll just help him. However, I'm not done with my technique, and I still need some time. I'll have to trouble you to go first. White Tiger Great Sage didn't say anything more. He transformed into a resplendent shooting star, and continued to flee into the distance. Shi Tianhao turned to look at Lu Yuan Great Sage. You and White Tiger Great Sage can go together. According to Master, there are at least 3 Yudu beasts chasing after us. The Great Chan Yu of Northern Militant Imperial Court is also rushing over with Longevity Heavenly Spear. I'll catch up to them soon. Lu Yuan Great Sage grinned unwillingly. During the war between the two worlds, even though he didn't have the cultivation he had today, he had seen the terror of Yudu clearly. However, he shook his head and still took a step forward, following in the direction that White Tiger Great Sage was heading. Yin Nanlai flew through the void, and when he noticed that Western Tomb City was fine, he couldn't help feeling slightly astonished. However, he soon felt an extraordinary aura approaching him. He frowned slightly and after a moment, he received a voice transmission from the Great Chan Yu of Northern Militant Imperial Court. After hearing the general introduction of the situation, Yin Nanlai replied, "Thank you for your trouble." In his current situation, time was of the essence, so he couldn't be bothered with pleasantries. He immediately flew into the distance at an extremely fast speed. White Tiger Great Sage, Great Chan Yu of Northern Militant, and Lu Yuan Great Sage blocked Yin Nanlai's back, intercepting the strong practitioners of Yudu, who were chasing from the direction of White Cloud Mountain. The void opened up at that moment, and purple light flashed. 3 heads stood up, and tall Yudu beasts walked out. Ming Yudu, who was in the lead, swept his gaze across the Great Chan Yu of Northern Militant and Lu Yuan Great Sage. He didn't stop there, and his gaze finally landed on White Tiger Great Sage. White Tiger Great Sage's cold gaze also landed on the 3 Yudu beasts in front of him. Beside Ming Yudu was a Yudu beast that looked like a young human. He bared his teeth and smiled. A pure-blooded white tiger will also be raised like a dog. From the information that Great Qin's king of Jingfang Shilin and Thunderous Sword Venerable Ben Lazy had received, Yudu tribe had also heard about Lin Feng going to Heaven Wasteland to capture the white tiger. Ning Feng, he came to intercept us. Even though he was sent by the master of Xian Gate, without him he would still view our tribe as an enemy and wait for an opportunity to strike, Ming Yudu said indifferently. After all, his father died at the hands of the clan master back then. Ning Feng Yudu bared his teeth and smiled. That's right, I've heard of it. When the clan master had just reached the last day's realm, he had slain that last day's white tiger. White Tiger Great Sage stared coldly at the 3 Yudu beasts in front of him. He didn't waste any words and directly revealed his true form. He raised his head to the sky and roared, causing the stars in the sky to tremble. The resplendent stars were like a meteor shower that started to crash down on Ming Yudu and the others. Ming Yudu said coldly, "Leave this white tiger to me. Deal with the remaining two yourselves. Try your best to catch up. Even though I don't know what the cultivator of Taishu Temple wants to do, just don't let him succeed." After saying that, he also raised his head to the sky and roared. The triangle on top of his head flashed, and large amounts of silver-white fur spread out from his body. Purple light flashed wildly, and his body also became much bigger. Facing the White Tiger Great Sage's White Tiger Starfall Divine Art, halos of light flew out from the three long horns on top of Ming Yudu's head, trapping the falling stars in the sky. Even though the stars were still bright after being trapped by the halos of light, they instantly calmed down. They were no longer as destructive and murderous as before. The light in White Tiger Great Sage's eyes was ice-cold and silent. The stars that were trapped suddenly dimmed, and all of their power collapsed toward the center. They were filled with an aura of destruction that was heading towards the end of the road. It was another innate great divine art of the White Tiger race, Nirvana Death Star. Under the explosion of the demonic power divine art, the stars were destroyed, and even the halos that were trapping them were broken. However, Ming Yudu's figure flashed, and he was already in the sky. He then swung his claw at White Tiger Great Sage, and a few streams of light tore the heaven and earth apart. Looking at White Tiger Great Sage fighting with Light Slayer of Yudu, Great Sage Lu Yuan and Great Chanyu of Northern Militant felt their hearts sink. Even though they knew how powerful the Yudu race was, they were still astonished. White Tiger Great Sage was only one tribulation away from completely passing through the first tribulation and entering the Dharma-ending realm. As a pure-blooded white tiger, his demonic power was strong, and he was extremely good at killing. Among all the demon races that were going through the first tribulation, he was a top-notch existence. In a life-and-death battle, he was even better than Jade Sky Dragon King, Zhu Yan Great Sage, and Huangshan Dragon King, who hadn't finished their tribulations. His opponent, Ming Yudu, was still a distance away from completely passing through the first tribulation. But now that he was fighting with White Tiger Great Sage, he wasn't afraid at all. "Lu Yuan, I haven't eaten it before. I heard from Uncle Qing Wan that Lu Yuan's brain tastes better. I didn't expect to be able to taste it today." At that moment, Ningfeng Yudu suddenly smiled lazily. In the next instant, he transformed into purple light and appeared in front of Great Sage Lu Yuan and Great Chanyu of the Northern Militant. Chapter 1232. Ningfeng Yudu's figure flashed, and he appeared in front of Great Sage Lu Yuan and Great Chanyu Beirong. Under the violent surge of demonic energy, large amounts of silver hair grew out of his body that looked like a human's limbs and covered his entire body. On the periphery of the long hair, there was a layer of purple light flashing. On the surface of the purple light, large amounts of green runes appeared and circulated endlessly, shaking the void. Ningfeng Yudu immediately revealed his true form and raised his power to the peak. He raised his two claws and clawed at Great Sage Lu Yuan and Great Chanyu Beirong. Rays of green light flashed across the void and directly shattered the space. It was like a sharp blade that separated heaven and earth. That violent power caused Great Sage Lu Yuan and Great Chanyu Beirong to feel apprehensive. This Yudu beast that had yet to experience tribulation at Union of Star and Soul Realm had such powerful demonic energy that it actually surpassed Great Sage Xiang Lu, who had just experienced the first tribulation. Great Sage Lu Yuan looked crazy, but he was actually very slippery. He naturally had a standard to judge the strength of his enemy. However, Ningfeng Yudu's main target was him, and his speed was astonishingly fast. Great Sage Lu Yuan could only receive the attack. He raised his head to the sky and let out a roar. His body expanded and became incomparably huge, exceeding 30,000 yards. Standing between heaven and earth, he also revealed his true form at the first instant. The circular rune on Great Sage Lu Yuan's forehead instantly swayed like a round mirror that shone with dazzling white light. The myriad mirror revolving phenomenon divine art was activated at this moment. The white light violently twisted as though it couldn't bear the burden, and the mirror was about to shatter. But from the white light, the rays of green radiance that Ningfeng Yudu had placed into it were still reflected. Next, the green light rushed out from the white light and clashed with Ningfeng Yudu's attack. The void between heaven and earth was destroyed on a large scale, and cracks were slashed out. The shattered green light danced wildly like countless tornadoes, turning the surrounding area into a sea of storms. When Ningfeng Yudu saw this, his eyes lit up. Oh, this is the first time I've seen the mirror-rotating myriad manifestations divine art of Lu Yuan's race. Not bad. Suddenly he had a thought. His body turned into a green light and flashed in the void. In the next instant, the void where Ningfeng Yudu was previously standing was annihilated. A human burly man stabbed over with a black spear. The human clan man's chi and blood surged wildly, gradually showing signs of returning to the natural state. Although his chi and blood were still blazing hot, the masculine chi and blood gradually gave off a sense of vastness. As the acupoints on his body opened and closed, it was as if billions of stars were twinkling in the starry sky. It was fine when he didn't exert his strength, but once he did, his body, which was only slightly taller than an ordinary person, suddenly emitted a powerful explosive force that was like the destruction of the universe. He was the Northern Militant Royal Court's Great Chanyu, a Dao integration stage martial Dao powerhouse, and the current #1 powerhouse of the Northern Militant Royal Court. In terms of the power of his physical body alone, he was comparable to many peerless great demons at the Star Soul integration stage. The black iron spear in his hand was naturally the #1 magic treasure of the Northern Militant Royal Court, the Longevity Heavenly Spear. This Mahayana-grade magic treasure was a pure killing weapon, and it was most suitable for martial arts powerhouses to use. At that moment, the Northern Militant First Chanyu mobilized the Longevity Heavenly Spear, pouring all of his martial will and power into the Longevity Heavenly Spear. The two of them fused as one, resulting in a formidable martial assassination power. Not even a great Yao at the one with the Astral Soul stage would dare to take it head-on. A single stab would leave a bloody hole. Not to mention great sage Lu Yuan. Even compared to Ningfeng Yudu, the Northern Militant First Chanyu's figure seemed extremely small at this moment. However, this seemingly small body contained an extremely terrifying power. It was extremely ferocious in close combat. The Northern Militant First Chanyu's eyes flashed. Not only had his primordial spirit completely fused with his physical body, even the Dao fruit after Dao integration had been refined into his physical body. The violent power could shatter the void with his physical body, push mountains and fill seas, and pluck the stars and the moon. His attack did not hit, so he immediately exploded his power again, pushing the short-range explosive power of a martial cultivator to the extreme. His speed was even faster than the primordial spirit's teleportation as he continued to chase after Ningfeng Yudu. Seeing this, Ningfeng Yudu raised his eyebrows. The demonic power turned into rays of green light that compressed in the air, forming a long spear. The long spear gradually turned from green to black, and its killing intent soared to the sky. In a split second, the green and black light spear flashed in the void, and pierced towards the Northern Militant First Chanyu. The green and black light spear instantly shattered the void, and collided with the Longevity Heavenly Spear. Both sides clashed violently, setting off an ear-piercing explosion. The two long spears rubbed against each other. The green and black light spear's direction was deviated, but the Northern Militant First Chanyu's spear also deviated from its original path. Ningfeng Yudu sneered, and the green and black light spear suddenly shattered when it was just inches away from the Northern Militant First Chanyu. It turned into a sky full of green light rain that struck towards the Northern Militant First Chanyu. Although every ray of light in the dense light rain was fragmented, the Northern Militant First Chanyu could clearly feel the terrifying destructive power within. He gave a low shout, and chi and blood rose above his head, forming an illusion of light and shadow. In the illusion, there was a vast grassland and endless blue sky. There was snow, rain, wind, frost, and the changes of the four seasons. The blue sky was boundless. The Northern Militant First Chanyu manifested his martial will to the extreme, and the Longevity Heavenly Spear also resonated, giving off a sharp and fierce cry. The momentum of the spear suddenly changed, and the sky full of spear shadows flashed repeatedly. It was so fast that people couldn't see them clearly. However, within the range of the spear shadows, the void seemed to be completely sealed. Everything in the space seemed to be completely still, and even the specks of dust floated motionlessly in the air, as though it was a still picture. The sky full of green light rain was also blocked, and it was hard for it to advance an inch. The next moment, the northern militant First Chanyu's momentum changed again, and the sky full of spear shadows disappeared. What was left was a black light that pierced towards Ningfeng Yudu again. In an instant, the extreme complexity became extreme simplicity, and the extreme stillness became extreme movement, displaying the profoundness of martial arts. However, before the northern militant First Chanyu could attack again, numerous green and black light spears had already pierced towards him. Great Sage Lu Yuan grunted, and the halo on his forehead flashed with white light again, reflecting the image of the green and black light spears. He wanted to use Myriad Manifestations Mirror to fight against Ningfeng Yuda's divine art. However, Ningfeng Yuda's abilities were clearly stronger than his, so it was extremely difficult for Great Sage Lu Yuan's Myriad Manifestations Mirror to reflect the green and black light spears. Out of all the light spears, he could only reflect one. As Great Sage Lu Yuan roared, white light spewed out from his mouth, and it transformed into a boundless hurricane to attack. The northern militant First Chanyu had no choice but to change his move again and deflect the green and black light spears that were piercing towards him. Both the northern militant First Chanyu and Great Sage Lu Yuan wanted to find a chance to fight in close combat, but under Ningfeng Yuda's violent attacks, they could only defend with all their might. Right at this moment, what made their hearts sink was the other strong practitioner of Yudu race that had merged with the stars and souls. Wanlong Yudu had an indifferent expression. He stood at the side and looked at them silently. The three long horns on his head were flashing with cold brilliance. Wanlong, go and chase after that cultivator of Taishu Temple. From the looks of it now, I alone am enough. Ningfeng Yudu suddenly bared his teeth and smiled. Even though there are few primordial spirit practitioners in Taishu Temple, I'm more interested in trying Lu Yuan's brain today. As he said that, purple brilliance flashed wildly on his body and shone with the green markings. Amidst the green and purple, the three long horns on his head became more and more dazzling. Ningfeng Yudu stared at Great Sage Lu Yuan and sneered. Can your myriad manifestations mirror reflect this thing? With a long howl, a green brilliance shot out from the heart of his brows. It was like a green rainbow that shot towards Great Sage Lu Yuan. That power was ethereal and brutal. Wherever it passed, the void was instantly destroyed. Yudu Mistflower. Great Sage Lu Yuan's expression changed. He didn't even need to try to know that his myriad manifestations mirror would definitely be unable to reflect this destructive attack. Without any hesitation, Great Sage Lu Yuan burst forth with all the power in his body. However, it wasn't to face the attack head-on. Instead, he leaped and broke through the void, trying to dodge with all his might. If he got hit by this attack, even if he didn't die, he would be heavily injured. Other than the myriad manifestations mirror, the power of the qi and blood of the corporeal body was also extremely strong. Their speed wasn't slow, and they had the reputation of being able to step on 1,000 mountains. Great Sage Lu Yuan leaped and instantly broke through layers of the void to escape. Even so, he was still hit by Ningfeng Yudu's Yudu Mistflower. One of his monkey claws was sliced off by that terrifying green brilliance. Great Sage Lu Yuan gave a miserable cry, and it was extremely mournful. Ningfeng Yudu laughed loudly, and the Yudu Mistflower turned and swept towards Great Chanyu of the northern militant. On the other side of the battlefield, Radiant Yudu, whose divine art had been broken by White Tiger Great Sage's nirvanic Death Stars, had a calm expression. His three horns were flashing, and his body was shrouded in a purple halo. On the surface of the purple halo, there were dark golden divine markings spreading through the void. That terrifying aura was much stronger than Ningfeng Yudu's. Even when facing White Tiger Great Sage, who was only a step away from completing his tribulation, he didn't lose out. His eyes flickered, and the purple light suddenly vanished. Replacing it were two rays of light, one gold and one silver. They flowed continuously like the sun and moon alternating. Yudu's sun and moon radiance, Radiant Yudu said coldly. Then two rays of light, one gold and one silver, rushed out from the heart of his brows. They intersected in the void and fused into a dark golden flash. This terrifying dark golden splendor swept through the void and broke apart the nirvanic Death Stars that were falling towards Radiant Yudu. White Tiger Great Sage's gaze was cold, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. He let out a heaven-shaking tiger roar, and boundless strong winds came whistling over, splitting heaven and earth. The clouds followed the dragon and the wind followed the tiger. The tiger's roar gave rise to the wind. 9 heavens divine wind black gold sword stars. This incomparably sharp strike actually broke apart Radiant Yudu's sun and moon splendor. Radiant Yudu didn't seem to mind. What a powerful divine art. Among the demons under the end of cultivation, in terms of pure attack power, probably only Jing Yan's Yudu brilliance can defeat this strike of yours. However, you won't be able to execute this kind of attack continuously. After saying so, he executed Radiant Yudu's sun and moon splendor again to attack White Tiger Great Sage. Wanlong Yudu looked at both sides of the battlefield silently, and he thought to himself, there's no need to worry about Ningfeng, and there's nothing to worry about here. I can chase after that Taishu Temple cultivator without worry. As he was thinking, his heart suddenly stirred, and he turned around. He saw the void in the horizon shattering, and a figure walked out. Chapter 1233. The strong practitioners of Yudu race, White Tiger Great Sage, Northern Militant Great Chanyu, and Luyuan Great Sage fought intensely. But at that moment, the void suddenly shattered, and a figure walked out. He was tall and handsome, and it was none other than Shi Tianhao. Above his head, there was a transparent city that was completely made of light. The city was majestic and huge, just like the blue sky and blue sky. When Zhanming Yudu, Wanlong Yudu, and Ningfeng Yudu saw Shi Tianhao, they frowned slightly. At that moment, Shi Tianhao, who had a radiant city above his head that was like a spirit body, stood calmly in the void. There was no special aura leaking out from his body, and he looked very ordinary. Even though that majestic city was vast, it didn't give off a majestic feeling of power. But the moment Shi Tianhao appeared, a strong sense of danger arose in the hearts of Wanlong Yudu and Ningfeng Yudu. It was as though they had instinctively felt danger. Even Zhanming Yudu had a strange feeling in his heart. Shi Tianhao swept his gaze across the battlefield, and he couldn't help grinning. Then, a violent aura burst forth from his body, and his qi and blood surged. He was much more ferocious than Great Sage Luyuan and Northern Militant Great Chanyu. His corporeal body gave off a desolate and primitive aura, and as Shi Tianhao smiled, his aura suddenly became extremely brutal. It was as though a primordial beast had descended into the mortal world. Feeling the change in Shi Tianhao's body, Wanlong Yudu, Ningfeng Yudu, and Great Sage Luyuan were slightly dazed. It was as though the person in front of them was a great demon that was even more brutal than them. Shi Tianhao's violent qi and blood resonated with the city formed by the spirit light above his head. That radiant celestial city was no longer calm at that moment. Instead, it gave off an extremely vast power. With a flash of light, Shi Tianhao and the radiant city vanished. When they appeared again, they were already in front of Ningfeng Yudu. Ningfeng Yu held his breath. He could feel the immense pressure. Although he was arrogant, he didn't dare to be careless at this moment. Green runes flickered around his body, and his body dissipated like a gust of wind, disappearing in an instant. Retreating, he had to first understand Shi Tianhao's foundation before making any further plans. However, the radiant city above Shi Tianhao's head trembled, and green light instantly swept across the heaven and earth, shining Shi Tianhao's figure once again. Shi Tianhao himself shouted and punched towards Ningfeng Yudu. Ningfeng Yudu's eyes flashed with cold light. A large number of greenish-black light spears appeared in the air and shot towards Shi Tianhao. Shi Tianhao sneered, and the aura of desolation surged around him. The Huang character formula of the mysterious yellow four-word formula strengthened his body, and a large amount of spirit light from the city above his head fell down, fusing with the aura of desolation, forming a protective light that was both light and mist at the same time. The vigorous power directly clashed with the terrifying greenish-black light spears. Even though the greenish-black light spears burst forth with terrifying power and stabbed into the protective light on Shi Tianhao's body, they couldn't hurt Shi Tianhao. Meanwhile, Shi Tianhao's iron fist that could shatter the void was still smashing towards Ningfeng Yudu. At this moment, Wanlong Yudu, who was on the other side, suddenly roared and revealed his true form. The 3 long horns on the top of his head shone with ice-blue brilliance and transformed into divine markings that filled the sky, sealing the surrounding heaven and earth in ice. Yudu absolute condensation. From the heart of Wanlong Yudu's brows, a smear of ice-blue light shone out. It was like a frozen path that continuously extended forward in the void. Wherever the ice-blue light passed, everything was sealed in ice. That terrifying power was actually even more terrifying than the 9 underworlds Yin Wind, Xianming True Water, and 10,000 years mysterious ice. The ice-blue light spread out continuously and transformed into frost that covered the sky, shrouding Shi Tianhao within. When Shi Tianhao saw the situation, he curled his lips and turned to look at Wanlong Yudu. A ray of light shot out from the heart of his brows, and it was like a rainbow that shocked the sky. It triggered the chanting of thousands of great Daos, and countless rays spread out in the world like an ocean of light. And everywhere that majestic divine light passed by, it was as if it was drawing an end point for everything, sending everything to its end. It was Shi Tianhao's divine light of end. This ray of light that seemed to be able to contain all the magnificence and power in the world brazenly sliced apart the ice-blue sky in front of him. The power of the divine light of creation would continuously increase, along with the increase of the cultivator's divine art magic power and cultivation realm. At this moment, this divine light of end of Shi Tianhao displayed an extremely astonishing power. Wanlong Yudu frowned, and the ice-blue light that was spreading out suddenly congealed. It quickly retracted and collided with Shi Tianhao's divine light of end. The ice-blue light shattered continuously, but the rainbow-like divine light seemed to have gradually sunk into silence. On the other side, Ningfeng Yudu roared at the sky, and the green Yudu flowing mist splendor poured out violently to bombard Shi Tianhao's fist that was strengthened by the radiant city and the air of desolation. It formed a huge green whirlpool, and in the whirlpool, countless green divine markings shone together to block Shi Tianhao's iron fist that was continuously advancing. Shi Tianhao looked at Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu with interest. TSK, the Yudu race is indeed better than hearing about it. Even though Dao Friend Grand Firmament is also Yudu, you still don't have a true corporeal body. Hearing the name of Grand Firmament, Ningfeng and Wanlong's expressions changed slightly, but what Shi Tianhao said next instantly made them dumbfounded. Based on experience, other than a few special circumstances, the stronger the demon race, the better the taste. Shi Tianhao stared at the 2 great demons of Yudu, and his eyes shone continuously. Your taste must be extremely good, right? Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu almost suspected that they had heard wrongly, but right after, Shi Tianhao revealed his white teeth and said with a smile, I haven't eaten Yudu before, so I can try something new today. Not bad, not bad. However, which one should we eat first? Great Sage Lu Yuan and Great Chanyu Beirong, who had reorganized themselves to come forward to help, also had weird expressions at this moment. It was especially so for Great Sage Lu Yuan, who didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Not long ago, Ningfeng Yudu was still thinking about splitting him open and eating his brains. Who knew that in just a short while, it was Ningfeng Yudu's turn to be targeted by a human who wanted to kill him and eat his flesh. As a demon, he had this kind of fear of being harmed, but he also had the complicated feeling of getting his revenge and letting out a sigh of relief. This made Great Sage Lu Yuan's heart flutter. The smile on Ningfeng Yudu's face vanished, and his gaze was fixed on Shi Tianhao. When Shi Tianhao met his gaze, he turned his head over as if nothing had happened. He said with a calm smile, You are staring at me like that. Are you impatient to enter my mouth? Since that's the case, I'll eat you first. After Shi Tianhao said that, his body suddenly trembled, and his body transformed from the body of desolate God into the body of abundant vitality. The powerful qi, blood, and the air of desolation in his corporeal body vanished, and his body suddenly transformed into the appearance of a taiji diagram. Meanwhile, the radiant city above his head gradually transformed into a material entity. The light scattered, and even though it was damaged and dilapidated, the majestic city in the sky appeared and smashed down on Ningfeng Yudu's head. The power of the city in the sky and the body of abundant vitality that Shi Tianhao had cultivated complemented each other and supported each other. The divine light of the end that shot out from the center of the Taiji diagram that his abundant vitality transformed into became even stronger. Under the reinforcement of the city in the sky, it started to suppress the Yuda's absolute essence. The terrifying divine light of the end had a momentum that seemed to be able to cut through everything and broke through the Yuda's absolute essence. Meanwhile, the city in the sky on the other side had also become extremely violent under the nourishment of Shi Tianhao's abundant vitality. It broke through the layers of clouds and smashed towards Ningfeng Yudu with the momentum of collapsing the heavens. The green mist formed by the Yudu flowing mist flower tumbled and dispersed continuously. The huge city in the sky combined with the magic power of Shi Tianhao's divine arts. Even though it looked like a ruin, it gave off a majestic aura that could suppress the heavens. Great Chanyu Beirong saw it from the side, and astonishment burst forth from his eyes. Such power is truly breathtaking, and this is just one of the many disciples of the Master of Profound Gate. That city that keeps changing, what exactly is? Wait a minute, this concept of power is similar to the path skills of the ancient Heavenly Gate. Could it be the legendary city in the sky? This thing actually still exists, and even though it's broken now, its power is still so strong. Even White Tiger Great Sage and Radiant Yudu who were fighting at the side had their attention attracted by Shi Tianhao. They looked at Shi Tianhao and the city in the sky. That was a power that could already threaten them. Radiant Yudu looked at Shi Tianhao and frowned slightly. With a thought, purple light that was engraved with dark golden markings spread out like sunlight. Under the shroud of the purple light, the void trembled continuously. Light and dark intersected like the sun and moon alternating, and yin and yang seemed to be separated again. Seeing that, Shi Tianhao laughed from the Tai Chi diagram. As it continued to spin, the Ying Yuan body turned back into the desolate god body. The gigantic city in the sky suddenly changed. The gigantic city turned into a halo of light and divided into the surroundings, turning into 12 giants that could support the heavens and the earth. The spirit bodies of the 12 heavenly god generals each said one word, and they exhaled as one. Immortal, void, instrument, Shuo, celestial, Yi, Jun, Tian, Zhu, chaos, wholeness, subjugation. The powerful corporeal body and qi of Shi Tianhao's body of desolate god were executed together with the aura of desolation, forming a marvelous balance to execute the 12 heavenly god generals. The 12 heavenly god generals held huge halberds in their hands and pointed at Radiant Yudu who was in the sky. Countless misty worlds seemed to form in heaven and earth, surrounding the 12 heavenly god generals, and Shi Tianhao to form a huge roulette. As the roulette rotated, it was as if the power of the 10,000 worlds in the heavens had gathered together to form an unstoppable power that crushed everything in front of it. That power that looked slow but had a majestic aura circulated and forcefully crushed Yudu's demonic power. Cold light flashed in Radiant Yudu's eyes, and the 3 horns on the top of his head flowed with radiance. 2 rays of light, one gold and one silver, rushed out from the heart of his brows and converged in the sky to form the terrifying brilliance of Yudu's sun and moon. But at this moment, White Tiger Great Sage had already rushed forward, forcing Radiant Yudu to have no choice but to turn his attention back to Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu. Shi Tianhao, on the other hand, sneered and separated his hands to strike at Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu. The spirit bodies of the 12 heavenly god generals retracted their halberds and switched to fists, doing the same action. The power of both sides merged together and boosted each other, instantly forming an incomparably violent fist force. It caused the void to crumble and collapse, and the 2 great demons of Yudu flew back. The demon light protecting their bodies shattered into pieces. Chapter 1234. Shi Tianhao's fist force was extremely violent. Under the reinforcement of the power of the 12 heavenly generals, he executed the 4 symbols world-extinguishing hammer that was passed down in Xianmen Tianzong's direct line of inheritance, shattering the void into chaos. It also shattered the demon light protecting Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu, causing their demon souls to become unstable from the tremors. Other than the purple flowing light scattering, there was even silver light bursting out. Ningfeng Yudu gave a long howl, and a triangular green light mark appeared on his head. He executed the Yudu flowing mist essence to attack Shi Tianhao, and Wanlong Yudu, who was beside him, did the same. The ice blue Yudu absolute essence condensed into a line and shot straight at Shi Tianhao. What exactly is that flickering light above his head? I've never even heard of it, much less seen it. Ningfeng Yudu gritted his teeth, and Wanlong Yudu said solemnly, the concept of the paths, skills are similar to the Heavenly Gates teachings that were already destroyed during the last years of the ancient era, but it's also different. It should have been fused with the paths of Xianmen Tianzong, giving it a unique transformation. Rumor has it that Heavenly Gate once refined the city in the sky, and the jade falling heavens formation formed by the spirit bodies of the 12 heavenly generals. They were linked together, and they could split and merge as they wished. At their peak, their power could be compared to the Taishu Temple's White Cloud Mountain, and the central world of Saha that was shattered by Her Majesty Yu Huang. Purple light surged wildly in Wanlong Yuda's eyes, and there was even an ice blue light flashing within. This thing was rumored to have been destroyed along with Heavenly Gate by the extreme spirits of the divine abyss. But from the looks of it now, there's only a remnant left, and it was refined by this person. Ningfeng Yudu gave a grunt, and the green Yudu flowing mist essence instantly changed and spread out in the void. There was no need to specially communicate, and Wanlong Yudu did the same thing. The Yudu absolute essence that was originally gathered into a line also transformed into an ice blue halo that spread out in the world. The two Yudu great demons of Star Souls Unite Realm opened their mouths, and starlight spewed out. The starlight that seemed tiny like the light of a firefly suddenly expanded and transformed into numerous dazzling stars that emitted extremely powerful and vast energy that shook the world. When these stars landed in the green Yudu flowing mist splendor, and the ice blue Yudu absolute condensation, the stars suddenly became bright and dazzling as though they were burning. After the starlight was dazzling for a moment, it began to perish quickly, and the terrifying power that erupted from it was all added to the green and icy blue light haze. Meanwhile, Yudu flowing mist flower and Yudu absolute condensation flower, these two terrifying beams of radiance actually started to fuse together, transforming into a sea of light. This ocean was vast and mighty, and its power seemed limitless. Cutting off a drop of seawater, from it could form a terrifying destructive force. The azure sea of light collided with the combined power of Shi Tianhao and the 12 heavenly generals, resulting in an intense collision. Millions and millions of drops of seawater that were hard to estimate exploded one after another, continuously blocking the terrifying power of Shi Tianhao's four symbols world-extinguishing hammer. Great Chanyu of the northern militant saw that not only was Shi Tianhao not worried, he even had the upper hand, so he didn't continue to advance. He just stood at the side to support Shi Tianhao. However, Great Sage Lu Yuan didn't just stand at the side and watch. With a sinister expression, he immediately attacked from the side. His right leg had been sliced off by Ningfeng Yudu's Yudu flowing mist flower, and his true form and demon soul were both injured. At this moment, he was truly suppressing a stomach full of anger and hatred. Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu were focused on defending against Shi Tianhao's attack. So when Great Sage Lu Yuan ambushed them from the back, they were instantly attacked from the front and back. Under the distraction, the azure sea of light started to tremble non-stop, and it was hard to stop the violent attacks of Shi Tianhao's body of rage god. Light flowed in Shi Tianhao's eyes. Previously, he had been comprehending and refining the city in the sky to help Western Tomb City resist the pressure, allowing him to gradually see his own path of two forms. After continuously analyzing it, the path in front of him was already incomparably clear, and he started to try taking the first step. At this moment, his heart moved, and the spirit bodies of the 12 heavenly generals started to solidify in the void. They shrunk continuously, and in the end, they transformed into 12 golden statues. Meanwhile, Shi Tianhao's body changed from the body of rage god to the body of surplus vitality, which manifested the appearance of the Taiji diagram. His power merged with the 12 golden statues. The 12 golden statues instantly burst forth with astonishing murderous aura, and they were solemn and imposing as they suppressed Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu. Under the protection of the 12 golden statues, Shi Tianhao's body of surplus vitality continued to descend, and he forcefully broke through the obstruction of the azure sea of light. Even if the azure light and icy blue radiance that filled the sky were forcefully broken through, they still transformed into boundless destructive light streams that attacked Shi Tianhao from all directions. However, the 12 metal men around Shi Tianhao gave off an aura that seemed to be able to suppress the heavens. It was as if they were indestructible and indestructible, blocking the green and ice-blue lights that were like natural disasters. Those terrifying light streams struck the surface of the golden statues like a violent storm, but they were all blocked by the golden statues. They were unable to pass through this firm barrier, and they could only lament their inadequacy. Shi Tianhao's body of surplus vitality controlled the 12 golden statues, and he forcefully passed through the azure sea of light, pressing in front of Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu. And at this moment, Shi Tianhao's body of surplus vitality transformed into the Taiji diagram, and in an instant he transformed into the body of Rage God. The 12 golden statues also suddenly dispersed, and they transformed into streams of light that manifested the appearance of the 12 heavenly generals. Violent power assaulted Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu, locking them in place and making it hard for them to escape. The air of desolation overflowed from Shi Tianhao's body, and he stretched his hand to grab at the two great demons of Yudu. The huge figures of the 12 heavenly generals seemed to stack together at this moment, transforming into a giant god that supported the heavens. They blessed Shi Tianhao's body, and his power rose rapidly. Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu dodged and retreated, but they were still caught by Shi Tianhao's 5 fingers. The sky was filled with green and ice-blue light patterns, and the void was continuously shattering. Shi Tianhao laughed, and a dazzling light shot out from the heart of the brows of the body of Rage God. It was the divine light of End. One of Ningfeng Yudu's arms was grabbed by Shi Tianhao, and he couldn't struggle free. His demon power was suppressed by the 12 heavenly generals, and he couldn't move. He could only watch as Shi Tianhao's divine light of End shot over. As he roared, he struggled to move back, but his arm was still severed from the shoulder by the light that seemed to be the end of all living things. Shi Tianhao grabbed Ningfeng Yudu's arm, and he looked at the purple blood that was flowing out continuously with a golden radiance. He couldn't help saying with a smile, "Doesn't look too bad." Ningfeng Yudu's arm was severed, and he was finally able to retreat. However, he was still trapped by the power of the 12 heavenly generals' spirit bodies, and he couldn't escape from Shi Tianhao. This great demon of Yudu stared at Shi Tianhao in astonishment and anger. He had always been the one eating others, but at this moment, the gaze that Shi Tianhao was staring at his arm was clearly that of an old glutton. What made him even more astonished and angry was that when Shi Tianhao raised his head, his gaze looked at him again. He examined him from head to toe as though he was looking at a fish on the chopping board. On the other side, ice-blue light gathered around Wanlong Yudu's body and enveloped his huge body. It was as though he was sealed in ice, and the ice-blue light flowed endlessly to resist the pressure from Shi Tianhao and the 12 heavenly generals' spirit bodies. Shi Tianhao took a look at Ningfeng Yudu, then turned to look at Wanlong Yudu. He said with a smile, don't be anxious, the taste of the two of you looks quite different. I won't eat together, it will affect the taste." It was fine if he didn't say it, but when he said it, not only Ningfeng Yudu was furious, even Wanlong Yudu's eyes turned blood red. As Shi Tianhao smiled, his heart suddenly stirred. He saw Zhanming Yudu, who was at the side, taking a blow from White Tiger Great Sage head-on before rushing over. 2 streams of light, one gold and one silver, fused together in a spiral. It was as though the sun and moon were alternating, and they finally transformed into a dark gold light that cleaved down on Shi Tianhao's head. Shi Tianhao curled his lips and released his magic power. He let go of Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu, and the spirit bodies of the 12 heavenly generals expanded above his head once again. The spirit bodies formed by the light rapidly gathered and transformed into the 12 golden men. Meanwhile, Shi Tianhao's body of desolate god transformed into the body of surplus essence. On top of the huge Taiji diagram, the 12 golden men stood in 4 directions and sat in the void. They formed a powerful formation to defend against the powerful attack from Zhanming Yudu. Rise! With a low shout from the Taiji diagram formed by Shi Tianhao's body of surplus essence, the bodies of the 12 golden men instantly trembled. The huge bodies that were originally sitting in the void stood up in unison at this moment. The 12 golden men stood up together, and their momentum was incomparably powerful as they forcefully resisted against the Yudu sun and moon splendor of Zhanming Yudu. Meanwhile, as the Yudu sun and moon splendor flowed continuously, it was as though it wanted to reverse yin and yang and shake up Shi Tianhao's 12 golden men. Shi Tianhao and the golden men were like divine metal that was nailed to the bottom of the sea in the raging waves. No matter how the sea roared, they persevered and didn't move an inch. No wonder this demon could fight with the old white tiger for so long. Before his divine art and demon power, he is indeed extraordinary. Shi Tianhao thought to himself, it's a pity my surplus essence desolate god isn't completely cultivated. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to defend so passively. Looks like I still have to cultivate to refine my spirit and return to the void before I can master this divine art. The pressure on Shi Tianhao wasn't small, and Zhanming Yuda's heart sank even more. Even though he thought highly of himself, he had to admit that the situation in front of him was disadvantageous to their Yudu race. This time, he wasn't able to break through Shi Tianhao's defense quickly, and White Tiger Great Sage immediately attacked again. Terrifying and cold starlight descended from the sky, and Zhanming Yudu roared at the sky. Purple light surged furiously around his body, and dark golden light markings shone continuously. The light markings spread out continuously, becoming denser and denser. It dyed the purple light around Zhanming Yuda's body into a piece of dull gold. In the dark gold light that covered the void, stars floated up, and the demon power of this great demon of Yudu instantly became even more violent and vast. At this moment, Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu, who had just broken free, didn't wait for the chance to escape. Instead, they executed their demon power and attacked Shi Tianhao as well. The battlefield instantly became incomparably chaotic. Vital qi and spirit power from all sides went berserk, and the void was shattered into pieces. Chapter 1235. Purple blood flowed out continuously from where Ningfeng Yuda's arm had been severed. The essence of the great Tao mixed with Yudu's true blood and floated in the air. Roar! Ningfeng Yudu gave a long howl, and violent green light swirled in the sky. It transformed into countless streams of light that gathered together and condensed into a line. It was like a huge green blade that cleaved at Shi Tianhao, who was defending against Radiant Execution Yudu. On the other side, Wanlong Yudu also had a grave expression. His Yudu absolute condensation essence was the same as Ningfeng Yudu's Yudu flowing mist essence. The icy blue light that filled the sky gathered at one point and attacked Shi Tianhao furiously. Shi Tianhao ignored Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu. He continued to use his power to defend against Radiant Execution Yudu. At that moment, White Tiger Great Sage's terrifying attack also landed on Radiant Execution Yudu. In an instant, flesh and blood flew everywhere, and light rained down. Be it Radiant Execution Yudu or Shi Tianhao, who was protected by the 12 metal men, they were both heavily injured. On Radiant Execution Yudu's back, large amounts of silver fur fell off, and purple blood that flashed with golden light splattered everywhere. The dark golden light on his body dimmed slightly. Meanwhile, the Taiji diagram formed by Shi Tianhao's abundant vitality body also had numerous wounds on it, as though it was about to shatter. Cracks also appeared on the surface of the 12 metal men, and the sturdy and indestructible concept of power instantly weakened. Although Radiant Execution Yudu was heavily injured, he still gritted his teeth and turned back to claw. His heavenly light tore apart heaven and earth as he clawed at White Tiger Great Sage. White Tiger Great Sage's eyes were cold and silent. His White Tiger clan's melee combat ability was among the best among all the demon clans, be it in terms of attack or defense. Bright Serene Seer had been fighting with him for a long time, and he had also been careful not to let White Tiger Great Sage get close to him. With a roar, White Tiger Great Sage also swung his claw, which collided with Radiant Execution Yuda's claw. A low muffled sound rang out in the sky. This sound shook the surrounding heaven and earth, and the void was completely shattered. Rays of dark golden light flickered on White Tiger Great Sage's claw like electricity. It caused his sharp claw to tremble, and he couldn't continue forward. However, Zhanming Yuda's claws were dripping with blood, so it was obvious that he had suffered a greater loss. As expected, You're only one tribulation away from completing the first tribulation. Zhan Mingyuda's expression was ice cold. The next time we meet, I'll also go through a few more tribulations. If you still haven't reached the last day's realm, then just wait for death. As he said that, the fresh blood on Clear Yuda's claw suddenly surged and transformed into rays of light that landed in the void, forming countless strange light markings. These light markings then gathered together and transformed into an even larger and more profound rune. The rune was completely dark gold and flashed with purple light, intimidating the vast world. Zhan Mingyudu gave a low shout, and the dark golden runes suddenly exploded, sweeping up beams of light mist that enveloped him, Ningfeng Yudu, and Wanlong Yudu. They then rushed into the sky. As the White Tiger Great Sage roared, meteors fell from the sky and struck the light pillars that enveloped the three Yudu beasts. The light pillars swayed and shattered continuously, transforming into a rain of light that filled the sky. However, Zhan Mingyudu and the other two still continued to fly upwards and escape. Ningfeng Yudu's eyes were bloodshot, and his left claw covered the wound on his right shoulder. He stared at the Taiji diagram and the 12 gold men that were gradually becoming smaller and smaller, and he couldn't help gritting his teeth. Xianmen Tianzong. Wanlong Yudu also stared at Shi Tianhao with a cold expression, but his expression suddenly changed, and his pupils contracted. That was because he saw a resplendent ray of light shooting out from the center of the Taiji diagram formed by Shi Tianhao's body of surplus energy. However, that ray of light was completely different from the divine light of the end. The ray of light in front of his eyes also had countless light patterns surging forth, transforming into layers of auspicious clouds. It seemed to contain all things in the world, and the mysteries of the changes of the primordial world. The ray of light shrouded the Taiji diagram, and the numerous damages and cracks on the surface of the Taiji diagram quickly recovered, becoming as good as new. It wasn't healing, nor was it reversing time, nor was it changing between real and fake. Instead, in an instant, it made it seem as if he was in a perfect state. If there was even the slightest change, he would return to his original state. Another ray of Shi Tianhao's divine light of creation, origin. Under the illumination of the origin divine light, not only did Shi Tianhao's injuries quickly disappear, even the 12 gold men trembled slightly and glowed with radiance again. Although the cracks on the surface of the gold men still existed, the indestructible concept of power was established once again, surging forth and connecting together. A front paw isn't enough for me to eat. The Taiji diagram suddenly turned and transformed back into a human form. Shi Tianhao, who had transformed from the body of surplus energy to the body of the desolate god, moved and quickly chased after Zhan Mingyudu, and the other two with the White Tiger Great Sage. At this moment, the 12 gold men above his head suddenly changed. The bodies of the gold men disappeared and transformed into rays of light. The rays of light condensed continuously in the void, forming a city of light that was completely transparent and resplendent. The spirit energy of the city of light reinforced Shi Tianhao's body, allowing his body of desolate god, which already had astonishing explosive power, to rise another level. He broke through the void and caught up to Zhan Mingyudu. At this moment, Zhan Mingyudu was busy dealing with the White Tiger Great Sage. Facing Shi Tianhao, who was chasing after them, Wanlong Yudu and Ningfeng Yu could only bite the bullet. A ray of purple light flashing with green light, and an icy blue light poured down from above like a celestial river hanging upside down. They poured down towards Shi Tianhao, wanting to strike Shi Tianhao down to the ground. However, Shi Tianhao laughed, and resplendent rays of light shot out from the heart of his brows again. It was still the divine light of origin, but this time, it wasn't used on himself. Instead, it was used on Wanlong Yudu and Ningfeng Yu. When the absolute Yudu essence was shone on by Shi Tianhao's divine light of origin, it immediately paused in the sky. The icy blue light shook continuously, as though it was returning to its origin, and vanishing without a trace. Wanlong Yudu frowned, and as his demon power surged, the icy blue absolute Yudu essence condensed continuously to suppress Shi Tianhao's divine light of origin. On the other side, Ningfeng Yu's injuries had already started to greatly affect his battle power. The purple light formed by his demon power landed on Shi Tianhao's body, but Shi Tianhao didn't dodge. He just used his powerful body of rage god to take it head-on. With the protection of Radiant City, the flashing green and violent purple light couldn't hurt Shi Tianhao's body. Shi Tianhao's footsteps didn't stop, and he pressed forward with an indomitable will. He forcefully withstood Wanlong Yudu and Ning Fengyo's attacks, and killed his way to the front of the trio. A terrifying aura of desolation spread out on the surface of the body of Rage God. And it was as though there was a primeval universe exploding in that body, evolving the changes of the primordial times. The violent power completely merged with Radiant City, and Shi Tianhao collided with Zhanming Yudu and the other two. On the other side, White Tiger Great Sage's attacks also landed endlessly. Under the pincer attack, the pillar of light that had engulfed the three great demons of Yudu completely shattered. Zhanming Yudu and the other two's escape steps were forcefully interrupted by Shi Tianhao and White Tiger Great Sage. Shi Tianhao let out a breath and shouted. Radiant City transformed into the spirit bodies of the 12 heavenly god generals, and they strengthened his body of rage god together. He punched out. Driven by his punch, the void in the surroundings seemed to sweep up as well. The power of the world in the heavens strengthened his punch at the same time. That vigorous power instantly made Ning Fengyu and Wanlong Yudu feel suffocated. Zhanming Yudu gave a long howl, and the three long horns on his head flickered continuously. Radiance suddenly flashed around his body, and half of it was gold and half of it was silver. It flowed alternately, and he adopted a defensive posture to seal off Shi Tianhao's punch. However, White Tiger Great Sage's attack came right after. The ice-cold and sharp flowing light landed on the gold and silver radiance in front of Zhanming Yudu like a blade. Even though the gold and silver radiance flowed continuously like the rising and setting of the sun and moon, reversing yin and yang to block the attacks from White Tiger Great Sage and Shi Tianhao. It was also shaking nonstop as though it could shatter at any time. Shi Tianhao dispersed the 12 heavenly god generals, and the shadows of the 12 giant gods filled the void in all directions. They surrounded Zhanming Yudu and the other two in the center. The spirit bodies of the 12 heavenly god generals formed a formation, and it gradually spread out. Countless light formation markings took shape, forming a huge formation that shrouded the heavens. The formation still looked incomplete, but the power inside could already circulate freely, and the jade-green radiance continued to spread into the surroundings. Under the shroud of the jade-green light, the heaven and earth that were in a mess due to the battle gradually stabilized. However, the three Yudu great demons, Zhanming Yudu, Ningfeng Yudu, and Wanlong Yudu, were sealed off by the jade falling all heavens formation formed by the spirit bodies of the 12 heavenly god generals. They suffered attacks continuously in the formation. White Tiger Great Sage and Shi Tianhao were also in the formation, and they attacked Zhanming Yudu's defense forcefully, wanting to smash this iron walnut. That ball of light that was half gold and half silver was like a candle in the wind, swaying non-stop. Great Sage Lu Yuan and Great Chanyu of Northern Militant looked at this sight, and their hearts trembled for a moment. Ever since Yudu race had reappeared, they had run amok in the world, casting a shadow over the entire divine land. Taihua Mountain was given up, and the forces left behind by Taishu Temple retreated to the stronghold on White Cloud Mountain. They had even attracted the Qi of Dragon Veins from Great Zhou and Great Qin, but in the end, they were still breached by Yudu race in a short time. Even though the main force of Taishu Temple and the Haotian Mirror had entered the mysterious sea, their battle power still raised the eyebrows of everyone in the human world of cultivation in the divine land. When the current monastery master of Taishu Temple, Yan Nanlai, broke out, he was chased by three great demons of Yudu. But now, the three great demons were all trapped, and they were about to fall under the hands of Shi Tianhao and White Tiger Great Sage. Even though they were defending with all their might, the defense was like a straw hut in a storm. It was on the verge of collapse, as though it would collapse at any moment. Great Sage Lu Yuan and Great Chanyu of Northern Militant had long known the power of White Tiger Great Sage. In comparison, the power displayed by Shi Tianhao was even more shocking. Ever since he had rushed to Western Tomb City to help Great Qin Empire get through a crisis, Shi Tianhao had suppressed Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu. Even though they hadn't experienced the calamity, The strength of their demon power and divine arts were even stronger than some great demons who had just experienced the calamity. However, at that moment, Shi Tianhao was fighting 1 against 2 with the support of Sky City. He beat up the 2 great demons of Yudu until they found it hard to defend themselves. Afterward, he even fought against White Tiger Great Sage, executing Light Yudu. Such an achievement shook the entire Heaven Primordial Great World. Thinking about Wang Lin and the rest, Great Sage Lu Yuan and Great Chanyu of Northern Militant sighed in their hearts. Under the master of Xian Gate, another disciple had grown into a strong practitioner that could make the entire Heaven Primordial world look over. He was starting to walk towards the center of the grandest stage in this world. Chapter 1236. Yan Nanlai was also surprised by the results of Xianmen Tianzong's battle. Even though his body kept on escaping, Yan Nanlai's consciousness was still paying attention to the battle behind him. He had a rough idea of the abilities of the strong practitioners of Yudu that were chasing him from White Cloud Mountain. Especially Zhanming Yudu, who was undergoing the first calamity and had also participated in the Battle of White Cloud Mountain. Yan Nanlai was clear that the strength of the great demon's divine arts and demonic power was almost on par with White Tiger Great Sage. Even if it was slightly inferior, it was still enough to fight with White Tiger Great Sage. The true victor would only be known after a real battle. The changes in the battle later also verified Yan Nanlai's guess. Ningfeng Yudu and Wanlong Yudu had also displayed extremely powerful battle abilities, surpassing even Lu Yuan the Great Sage and Northern Militant Great Chanyu. However, the abilities that Shi Tianhao displayed afterward, suppressing Ningfeng and Wanlong, and fighting against Zhanming, made Yan Nanlai feel slightly astonished. Even though the distance was extremely far, Yan Nanlai could still feel the concept of suppressing the heavens and all methods returning to the stream. Compared to others, as the current monastery master of Taishu Temple, Yan Nanlai had a deeper understanding of the concept of power. There were numerous historical records in Taishu Temple, so even though Yan Nanlai had never seen it personally, he could confirm that it was the aura of power that came from the combination of the ancient heavenly sects Sky City and Jade Falling Heavens formation. Looks like the Sky City really didn't shatter completely back then. Yan Nanlai muttered to himself. In that case, the power that helped Western Tomb City block the calamity wasn't White Tiger. It was the power of Shi Tianhao and the Sky City. Yan Nanlai raised his head to look at the sky. Senior brother Kuang, you also made a mistake back then. A myriad of thoughts flashed through Yan Nanlai's mind. Sensing that Shi Tianhao, White Tiger Great Sage, and the rest had the upper hand in the battle behind him, and that the 3 great demons, including Zhanming Yudu, could no longer chase after them, Yan Nanlai completely immersed his mind into the ritual of the curse of blood soul calming. Through continuous deductions, Yan Nanlai gradually determined the direction and distance to where the king of the underworld and the rest were. At the same time, as one of the strong practitioners of Taishu Temple who could execute the Haotian mirror, he could clearly feel that the Haotian mirror was being shaken continuously. The situation was becoming more and more dangerous. However, just as he continued to fly forward, Yan Nanlai's heart suddenly jolted. He saw the space before him suddenly break apart, and a figure appeared. It was a middle-aged Taoist wearing a black Taoist robe. His complexion was like jade, and he had a 3-foot-long beard. His demeanor was rather outstanding, but his skin was extremely pale, causing him to give off an eerie feeling. Seeing this person's appearance, Yan Nanlai frowned slightly. Taoist Yu Ming. The newcomer was none other than the 3rd disciple of the king of the underworld, Taoist Yu Ming. He was a cultivator at the first tribulation stage, and had studied under the king of the underworld for many years. His magical powers were astonishing, and even though he was unable to draw upon the power of the netherworld sea, his skills were not to be underestimated. However, he was currently blocking Yan Nanlai's path. What caught Yan Nanlai's attention the most was the scroll in his hands. Seeing that scroll, Yan Nanlai's pupils shrank slightly. The Book of Life and Death. The Book of Life and Death, which seemed like an ordinary ancient book, seemed ordinary, but it emitted a terrifying energy fluctuation. Taoist Yu Ming calmly looked at Yan Nanlai and said, "The current head of the Taishu Temple? Greetings, Netherworld." Yin Nanlai was well aware that he had used the ritual of Curse of Blood Tranquility to find the location of the King of the Underworld and Yin Xinghe. But on the other hand, the King of the Underworld, who had refined Yin Xinghe into an evil soul, would also be able to sense his actions through this trace. When Yin Nanlai used the Curse of Blood Tranquility to sense the location of Yin Xinghe's evil soul, Yin Xinghe could also roughly sense Yin Nanlai's location. Yin Xinghe, who had been refined into an evil soul, couldn't be immune to the Curse of Blood Tranquility. As long as Yin Nanlai was willing to sacrifice his life, he could drag Yin Xinghe down with him. The King of the Underworld was also clear about this point, and he was also taking precautions against it. To him, Yin Nanlai being trapped in White Cloud Mountain by the Yudu race was naturally the best outcome. When the King of the Underworld sensed that Yin Nanlai had successfully broken out of White Cloud Mountain and executed the Curse of Blood Tranquility, the founding emperor, the King of the Underworld, immediately sensed it. Thus, he activated his backup plan and sent Taoist Yu Ming to block Yin Nanlai with the Book of Life and Death, preventing him from getting close and having the strength to complete the ritual. Different from the previous test, the King of the Underworld was now presiding over the ritual with the evil soul of Yin Xinghe, and the wavering of the Haotian mirror had officially begun. They had entered a stage where they couldn't be interrupted or disturbed. After experiencing the wavering, the Supreme One Venerable and the rest in the mysterious sea also noticed something was amiss and started to plan a plan. Even though the King of the Underworld really wanted to beat the grass and alert the snake, using a simplified ritual that could be stopped at any time to lure Yin Nanlai to death and get rid of the hidden danger, that would give the Supreme One Venerable and the rest in the mysterious sea more time to prepare, making it harder for them to snatch the Haotian mirror. The King of the Underworld would never underestimate the abilities of the cultivators of Taishu Temple. Furthermore, all along, the King of the Underworld had kept his guard up against Lin Feng. Now that Lin Feng was rushing to the aid of White Cloud Mountain and going against the Yudu race, the King of the Underworld had finally gotten rid of his biggest worry, and he could let loose. However, the exact changes in the battle between Lin Feng and the Yudu race was something the King of the Underworld couldn't predict or control. Even he couldn't estimate when the battle on White Cloud Mountain would end, and how it would end. Especially since he could faintly feel that Lin Feng's heaven-punishing sword was still sealed. To prevent any accidents from happening, the King of the Underworld could only grab the chance in front of him and activate the ritual with all his might. Even though there was a certain risk because of Yin Nanlai's existence, the unpredictable situation still made the King of the Underworld decisive. At this moment, Taoist Yu Ming brought the Life and Death book to stop Yin Nanlai, which was to get rid of the hidden danger that he had predicted. Silently, Taoist Yu Ming looked at Yin Nanlai, the descendant of Yin Xinghe. He shook his head and didn't say anything more. He directly flipped the mysterious Life and Death book in front of him, and the resplendent brilliance on the book instantly transformed into a huge pillar of light. It burst forth and transformed into a gray world of the dead. Every page of the book seemed to be a world of its own, and every page seemed to record the lives and deaths of tens of thousands of life forms. This gray world seemed to be connected to the entire Great Thousand World, yet at the same time opposing it. It actually activated some of the Great Thousand World's energy, as if it was the true destination of the billions of life forms in the Great Thousand World after they died. Even though Yin Xinghe had broken out of the White Cloud Mountain, he had also suffered injuries. His situation was better than what the King of the Underworld and Taoist Yu Ming had expected. Taoist Yu Ming didn't say anything more and directly activated the powerful power of the creation treasure, the Life and Death book, to suppress Yin Nanlai. Yin Nanlai's expression was calm as he said indifferently, "Have you arrived?" Taoist Yu Ming's gaze moved slightly as he raised his head and looked towards the other side of the sky. He saw the void in the horizon crack open, and rays of purplish gold brilliance shone. Within the endless purplish gold brilliance, a vague shadow appeared. It was heavy, vigorous, domineering, and majestic, as if it was carrying the weight of the country, and its might was overlooking the world. Countless talismans and curses flew around, accompanied by the purplish gold brilliance that spread out in all directions. The huge shadow in the light gradually revealed its true form. It was a palace that looked like a city. The main hall, the side hall, the courtyard, the platform, and the tall building formed a palace that looked like the residence of a celestial king. It was like the sun in the sky, filled with the majesty of a king. This was the creation treasure refined by the Grand Emperor in the past, which later fell into the hands of the Great Zhou Empire. The Grand Emperor Palace. The domineering and majestic aura made even Taoist Yu Ming, who had the life and death book, frown. The power and aura are complete, and the principles and concepts are flawless. This feeling. Has the Grand Emperor Palace completely recovered? In the Grand Emperor Palace, a middle-aged man dressed in a dragon robe sat on the dragon throne. He was the ruler of the Great Zhou Empire, Emperor Liangpan of Zhou. Liangpan said silently, "Yin Guan Lord, please leave first." Yin Nanlai's gaze landed on the majestic Grand Emperor Palace. After sizing it up, his gaze became deep as he nodded. "Thank you." Emperor Liangpan of Zhou replied indifferently. The war between the two worlds is of great importance. The Great Zhou Empire will naturally contribute and fight for the human race. Yin Nanlai didn't say anything else. His figure turned into a stream of light and fled. At this moment, Taoist Yu Ming's gaze was no longer on him. Instead, he placed all his attention on the Grand Emperor Palace before him. The Grand Emperor Palace shone with boundless brilliance. A powerful force that could dominate the world spread out. The entire world trembled, as if it wanted to prostrate itself at the feet of this celestial palace. The pages of the life and death book flipped continuously. Rays of brilliance flashed as if it was wary of the strength of the opponent before it. The name of a person and the shadow of a tree. Even the life and death book, which was also a creation treasure, felt pressured when it faced the #1 treasure of the human emperor that had returned to its peak. Emperor Liangpan of Zhou and the Grand Emperor Palace fought against Taoist Yu Ming and the life and death book. Yin Nanlai followed the guidance of the blood soul calming spell and continued to rush towards the location of the king of the underworld and Yen Xing He's evil soul. However, Yin Nanlai didn't feel relaxed. Although the king of the underworld was also presiding over the ritual and couldn't be distracted, he also had many strong subordinates. Taoist Yu Ming wasn't the only one. However, Yin Nanlai was like an arrow knocked on a bowstring. He had no choice but to release it. He sped along the way and suddenly stopped. His gaze pierced through space and stared into the distance, seemingly unable to see. Yin Nanlai took in a deep breath. His hands continuously changed as white clouds appeared. They turned into black and white streams of air that continuously revolved around Yin Nanlai. At the same time, rays of golden light appeared on Yin Nanlai's body. Under the contrast of the black and white streams of air, they gradually condensed into a strange talisman. The drop of blood that had previously guided Yin Nanlai was now fused into the strange talisman. A layer of blood immediately appeared on the surface of the talisman. It looked sinister and mournful. Yin Nanlai did not stop casting his spell. However, at this moment, the void suddenly trembled. Suddenly, masses of blood clouds appeared, covering the sky. The blood clouds split apart. From within, streams of sticky and smelly nether blood rivers flowed out. Following the streams of blood, large amounts of blood river true water dripped down, raining down a terrifying rain of blood. Chapter 1237. The figure of an old man appeared from within the river of blood that had split apart. He wore a snow-white robe, and he had a refined and thin appearance. But as his eyelids opened and closed, a wisp of a horrifying bloody glow would frequently flash within them, and it was a horrifying sight. It was Taoist Blood River, a giant of the devil path in the ancient times who had been killed by the king of the underworld and refined into an evil soul. Yin Nanlai had already seen him in the netherworld sea and knew that the elder in front of him had become an evil soul. He had lost the billions of sons of blood gods that had dominated the world in the past, but his divine arts and magic power were still astonishing. Putting aside the fact that he had to use all his strength to activate the ritual of the curse of blood soul tranquility, even if he focused on fighting, he wouldn't be able to defeat Taoist Blood River even if he was injured by Green Crest and Yudu. Taoist Blood River looked at Yin Nanlai coldly. Rivers of blood flowed around him and spread continuously, gradually turning into a boundless sea of blood that shrouded the entire void. The filthy blood river was incomparably stinky, making people want to vomit. It hadn't been obvious in the netherworld sea, but now that they were in the boundless world, the sea of blood that covered the sky caused the spirit chi in the surroundings to be polluted. All the light in the world seemed to have dimmed at this moment. Only the dim blood-red light flickered incessantly, covering the void. However, Yin Nanlai's expression was calm. He said indifferently, "Thank you, Tao friend of the ancient race." As he spoke, the void trembled. Suddenly, many snow-white lotuses broke through the void. A desolate, ancient, endless, and seemingly endless intent domain accompanied the snow-white lotuses from within. A middle-aged man appeared in the snow lotuses. He was handsome and elegant. He was the master of the ancient world of immortals, the current leader of the ancient emperor's bloodline. Gujun looked at the sea of blood that covered the sky and sighed. "Taoist blood river, you live up to your reputation." He clapped his hands lightly, and a white light flew up into the sky, turning into a simple and elegant white lotus in the sky. It looked only the size of an adult's palm, but it exuded a power that could shock people's hearts. The rich spiritual energy fluctuations were vast and boundless, and it was abnormally mysterious, as if it was facing an entire world. It was the inheritance of the ancient emperor's bloodline, the treasure that was only one step away from achieving creation, the longevity lotus seat. After learning that Yudu race had returned to the boundless world, the human race was in a dangerous situation, and the bloodline of the ancient emperors finally threw themselves into the war between the two worlds. As the strongest expert of the ancient emperor's bloodline, not only did Gujun participate in the war, he even brought the longevity lotus throne out of the ancient longevity world to participate in the war between the two worlds. Originally, after communicating with Lin Feng, Gujun rushed to West Hill City and arrived almost at the same time as Shi Tianhao. However, after witnessing Shi Tianhao activating the power of Sky Castle, Gujun stopped attacking and only silently helped Shi Tianhao in the distance. Even though it was a rescue in a time of crisis, his identity caused the Great Qin Empire to have unnecessary suspicions. Seeing that Shi Tianhao was controlling the power of Sky Castle more and more freely, Gujun decided not to show himself, and let the Great Qin Empire only owe Xianmen Tianzong a favor. When the Haotian mirror was shaken again, and Yin Nanlai broke out of the encirclement, Gujun, who had communicated with Lin Feng again, didn't go to stop Yudu. Instead, he followed Yin Nanlai to find the king of the underworld. Not only was the king of the underworld carrying out the ritual, his whereabouts were also a secret. He definitely had people protecting him, and many other preparations. The evil soul refined by the king of the underworld has a huge disadvantage. It can't travel far away from its master. The further away it is from the controller of the life and death nether Dao fruit, the more severe the decline of the evil soul's power. Gujun said calmly, "Even though the longevity lotus seed of my race hasn't truly reached creation, and I haven't completed the first calamity, the evil soul of Taoist blood river is quite far away from the king of the underworld, causing his power to be much weaker than when he was at his peak. I should be able to stop him. After being refined into an evil soul, he can no longer execute the Dharma-ending calamity." In the past, the ancient emperor race had directly clashed with the orthodoxy of the king of the underworld, so they had a very deep understanding of the paths and skills of the king of the underworld. As Gujun spoke, he executed the power of the longevity lotus seat. White lotuses of light bloomed in the void and formed a boundless sea of white light, blocking the vast sea of blood outside. Ninth Imperial Uncle and the South Pole Treasure Gourd have also arrived. However, they are facing Taoist Blood River, so they can't avoid being tainted by the Nether Blood River. Therefore, they can only stay outside. Silently, Gujun said, "Yanguan Master, please point out the exact location of the King of the Underworld and the people of the Underworld Hall." This time, the ancient race had almost turned out in full force. Other than Gujun and the Longevity Lotus Seat, Gu Yuankai and one of the two great Mahayana grade magic treasures of the ancient race, the South Pole Treasure Gourd, had also accompanied them. The ancient longevity world was only left with the other Dao integration realm cultivator, Gu Cheng, and the Mahayana grade magic treasure, the desolate ancient immortal cauldron. The king of the underworld is currently executing the ritual, so he can't be distracted. We can try to launch a surprise attack to disturb him. Other than our own race, Xianmen Tianzong seems to have also rushed over. Hearing this, Yan Nanlai glanced at Gu Jun. At this moment, the king of the underworld and Yan Xinghe's evil soul were both executing the ritual, so they couldn't be distracted. Taoist Yu Ming and the Book of Life and Death were being held back by Emperor Zhou's Liangpan and the Grand Imperial Palace, while Taoist Blood River was being held back by Gu Jun and the Longevity Lotus Seat. The ancient race's Tao Integration Realm Elder, Gu Yuankai, with his Mahayana-grade magic treasure, could naturally play an important role against the cultivators of the Underworld Hall. However, there was a problem. If they really destroyed the ritual, the king of the underworld would fly into a rage out of humiliation, and Gu Yuankai and the others wouldn't be able to stop him. However, Gu Jun and Gu Yuankai, who already had a rough idea of the outcome of the matter, also knew that the Haotian mirror was of great importance. Even if the king of the underworld didn't obtain it, if the Haotian mirror was shaken, causing the Taishu temple and the mirror to fall into the Xianxi together, it would still lead to a catastrophic outcome. For the entire war between the two worlds, the situation of the human race would be unimaginable. Since they had already decided to participate in the war between the two worlds, the ancient race would no longer hold back. Slowly Yan Nanlai said, "This plan is feasible." After saying this, he didn't waste any more time. With a flick of his finger, a ray of light tore through the void and fled into the distance. Gu Jun said, "Ninth Imperial Uncle, be careful." A few rays of light flashed across the distant horizon. They followed Yan Nanlai's directions and headed into the depths of the void. Among the rays of light, one of them was a white-haired elder with a calm expression. He was the longtime elder of the ancient emperor's bloodline, Venerable Spirit Perception Gu Yuankai. Gu Yuankai transmitted his voice using magic power. "This old man will do his best." Beside Gu Yuankai, in a ray of resplendent light, there was a broadsword that was overflowing with an ancient aura. Its entire body was flashing with a faint golden radiance. The majestic sword will and sword qi rushed into the heavens, startling all the worlds in the world. It was Tsongtian Daojian, who wanted to slash blue sky up and yellow spring down. Wang Lin had yet to recover from his heavy injuries, and Xiaoyan had to use sword Venerable Firmament to train himself by using radical battle tactics, so his injuries weren't light either. Zhu Yi guarded the realm passage of the southern borders and confronted Shenlong King, while Shi Tianhao blocked Yudu, who was chasing Yan Nanlai. Thus, on Xianmen Tianzong's side, Songtian Daojian would bring Yangqing back to Mount Kunlun through the space formation from Yingxi. After that, they would rush over from Mount Kunlun with Li Yuanfang. However, they were the vanguard. After Shi Tianhao and White Tiger Great Sage dealt with Ming Yudu and the rest of the demon race, they would also rush over to King of the Underworld's battlefield. Yangqing and Li Yuanfang were swept up by Songtian Daojian's sword light. Silently, they sat upright in the sword light, and neither of them spoke. Even though their mission was to clean up the strong practitioners of the Underworld Hall with the other primordial spirit realm practitioners of the ancient emperor's bloodline other than Gu Yuankai, they might face the threat of the king of the underworld if they got close to him. However, their expressions were calm as usual. They didn't feel any fear towards the upcoming battle. Li Yuanfang turned his head to look at Yangqing, fifth senior brother. No one knew what Yangqing had experienced when he had fallen into the tranquil dream illusory realm that Ningwanga had unintentionally created. However, Wang Lin, who had a similar experience, knew that it definitely wouldn't be a beautiful memory. Li Yuanfang, who had found out about the general situation from Wang Lin, couldn't help feeling slightly worried for this senior brother of his. Even though he was strict and stubborn, and wasn't good at expressing himself, deep in his heart, he still cared about his senior brother and junior brother. Li Yuanfang didn't really understand the relationship between a man and a woman, but he also felt that it was a pity for his fifth senior brother and his former lover, Fang Ting. As if he understood what Li Yuanfang was thinking, Yangqing smiled before he could speak. "Sixth junior brother, don't worry. I'm fine." Li Yuanfang nodded silently. Yangqing continued, "Sixth junior brother, you've accumulated enough, but you're still a step away from the primordial spirit realm. If you gain something from this battle, you might be able to successfully break through the final bottleneck. Li Yuanfang didn't answer, and only nodded slightly. To him, this kind of uncertain matter made him very uncomfortable. Yang Qing also understood Li Yuanfang's mentality. After encouraging him, she also didn't say anything else. On the other side, Gu Yuankai and Sangtian Dao Jian walked side by side, following the guidance of Yan Nanlai's spiritual light and flying through the void. A gourd-shaped silhouette was vaguely visible in the void above his head. It was the ancient emperor's other Mahayana-grade treasure, the South Pole treasure gourd, apart from the primordial immortal cauldron. In the gourd, there were a few ancient race cultivators, led by Gu Peng, who was at the return to Void Realm. Other than them, there were also Gu Baixian and the others. They were in the South Pole treasure gourd, moving together with Gu Yuankai. At this time, they were also silent, meditating with calm expressions. As they walked, a light suddenly flashed in front of them, and a gray fog appeared. It lit up with a dim light, stretching across the dark void. The fog was so vast that they couldn't see its end, like a gray sea of clouds. Sangtian Daojian and Gu Yuankai's movements paused at the same time. The spiritual chi waves within it are so strange. It feels like a medium-class world has been destroyed, but in the process of destruction, it suddenly stopped. This is the effect of the king of the underworld's magical power. He sacrificed a medium-class world. However, the power within the gray sea of clouds was currently being supplied to the king of the underworld's ritual, and the king of the underworld himself couldn't be distracted. After a short pause, the group continued to rush into the gray sea of clouds. At this time, the gray sea of clouds suddenly began to fluctuate violently, and streaks of light flashed within. Chapter 1238. As the gray sea of clouds churned, the fog gradually parted to reveal a group of people. This group of people were all dressed in black robes, and their leader was a tall man. His face was hidden by the hood of his cloak, but the terrifying dermic power fluctuations around him showed that he was a Dao integration stage powerhouse. He was the Underworld Palace's sub-palace master, King Yama, who had the highest cultivation among the 10 Yama kings, and was a loyal confidant of the king of the underworld. There were two people standing on either side of him. The one on the left was a young man dressed in a black robe with golden edges. He held a huge black brush in his hand, which was the manifestation of the Grand Mahayana Grade Magic Treasure, the Netherworld Imperial Brush. On the right of King Yama stood an old man dressed in a black robe, but he had taken off his cloak and revealed his face. This old man's hair and beard were red, and he looked mighty. Although it was the first time that Yang Qing, Li Yuanfang, and the others saw him in person, they immediately recognized him. He was the current sect master of the Reincarnation sect, the former sect master of the Azura Path, Emoshiolua. In the past, other than the former sect masters of the Heaven Path, and Zhang and Rui of the Human Path, there was another Dao integration stage expert in the Reincarnation sect. His divine powers and dermic powers were far stronger than Zhang and Rui's. Even Shi Tianfang did not dare to underestimate him. It was precisely because of Zhang and Rui's betrayal that Emoshiolua fell into Shi Tianfang's trap. He was eventually defeated and captured, and the Reincarnation sect was unified. Shi Tianfang did not know that the king of the underworld and the former palace master of the underworld palace, Su Anda, were able to unite the Reincarnation sect. Su Anda had also fallen into the king of the underworld's trap. Both Emoshiolua and Zhang and Rui had secretly pledged their allegiance to the king of the underworld. Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong, as well as the people in Taishu Temple, were all vaguely aware of this, but they did not act rashly. Instead, they hoped to use this opportunity to locate the king of the underworld. After losing the sixth path wheel, Shi Tianfang and Zhang and Rui, the Reincarnation sect's power was greatly weakened. The Reincarnation sect had been in a dormant state for years. Emoshioluo, who was born in the Shura Dao and loved to kill, seemed to have put down the butcher's knife and become a vegetarian after he took over the position of the Reincarnation sect's sect master. Even during the war between the two realms, both Lin Feng and Taishu Temple were secretly monitoring the movements of the Reincarnation sect. However, as the Yudu race returned to the boundless world, the war situation took a turn for the worse. The entire divine land was under immense pressure, so it was inevitable that the surveillance on reincarnation sect would weaken. As the new King Taishan of the Underworld Hall, Mo Shuluo, and the new sect master of the celestial path of the reincarnation sect, Shen Qifeng, naturally had their own methods of concealment. They snuck out of the mountain gate of reincarnation sect to meet up with the king of the underworld. Only the two of them came, and no one else in the reincarnation sect was alerted. Under their concealment, no one noticed them. To the king of the underworld, seizing the Haotian mirror was undoubtedly the most important task at hand. Even he began to mobilize all the forces he could muster. If this battle was successful, the entire divine land and even the great heaven primordial world's power map would be rewritten. Behind Mo Shuluo stood a young man in a black robe. Under the black robe was a white shirt. He took off his cloak and hood, revealing his true appearance. It was Shen Qifeng. Beside Shen Qifeng stood a black-robed old man with a lean face. His cultivation base was at the return to Void Realm. He was the trusted subordinate of the king of the underworld, just like the King Yanluo. He was also one of the 10 Yama kings of the underworld palace, the disobedient king, Sikongyu. Standing with them were a few figures shrouded in black robes. They were all subordinates of the king of the underworld, cultivators of the underworld hall, who were ranked as the 10 Yama kings of the underworld. Other than the Chakra King, King Bianqing, and King Pingdang, there was also another King Qingguang who had succeeded the deceased Zhang Lai. On the eve of the war between the two worlds, many forces in the Divine Land had joined forces to encircle and annihilate the Underworld Hall. The former King Chujiang and the former King Dusher had been captured. Now, outstanding emissaries from the Underworld Hall, who had reached the nascent Soul Realm, had been selected to fill their positions. At present, the 10 Yama kings of the Underworld, together with the Mahayana grade magic treasure, the king of the Underworld Brush, stood silently in front of Gu Yuankai, Yang Qing, Li Yuanfang, and the others, waiting for them. In the distant void behind them, there seemed to be no sense of distance. It seemed to be close at hand, but also seemed to be out of reach. A huge 3-layered black altar stood there. On top of the altar, rays of light flashed, mysterious and vast. It was as if the universe covered the heavens, and the aura of magic power emanated from it. Gu Yuankai looked at the King Yanluo and the others in front of him, and did not waste any time. He looked up at the light shadow in the void above his head. "Thank you, Old Man South Pole." The light shadow flew out of the void, revealing the shape of a purple gold gourd. It was as big as a mountain. A ruddy old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion appeared beside the purple gold gourd. He nodded and said, "Do it." Light flew out of the gourd, releasing Gu Peng and the others. Then the old man disappeared and became one with the huge South Pole treasure gourd. Gu Yuankai pointed a finger at the South Pole treasure gourd, and one man and one treasure rushed toward the black altar. The King Yanluo, who was shrouded in a black robe, did not say a word. He stepped forward. The king of the underworld brushed beside him, and the young man formed by the magic treasure's origin spirit also disappeared, and became one with the magic treasure. The King Yanluo reached out a hand and grabbed the king of the underworld brush. He immediately rushed toward Gu Yuankai and the South Pole treasure gourd. The King Yanluo waved the brush and wrote thousands of strokes in the void. Immediately, thousands of black streams of light crisscrossed and blocked the path of Gu Yuankai and the others. Gu Yuankai's expression did not change. He lightly patted the South Pole treasure gourd. The mouth of the South Pole treasure gourd opened, and instantly, like a bottomless pit, a powerful suction force came from it, sucking in the streams of black light. However, as the King Yanluo waved the king of the underworld brush, the streams of black light seemed endless, turning into a black ocean that still blocked the path of Gu Yuankai and the others. The two powerhouses of the Dao integration stage, and the two Mahayana grade magic treasures immediately engaged in a battle in the void. The King Yanluo's body was covered in a black robe. Under the black robe, his body seemed to transform into layers of gray clouds, spreading out vast and mighty. He exuded a deathly aura that could cause all things to wither. A desolate and ancient aura filled the air around Gu Yuankai. It was a long and endless life, one that could even surpass life and death. White lotuses bloomed one after another, blocking the gray aura of death. At the same time, golden flames lit up, flickering with red and blue light, and began to burn the gray aura of death. Although the Nanmingli fire, one of the 7 great true fires in the world, was not known for its mighty fire, when it was used by Gu Yuankai, a powerhouse of the Tao integration stage, it had the power to burn the heavens and destroy the earth. The vast sea of fire was boundless. The Tsangtian Dao Jian also unleashed sword light, and let go of Yangqing and Li Yuanfang. He turned into a surging sword light, and swept all the 10 kings of hell aside from the King Yanluo into it. Emo Xiaoluo's eyes lit up with a dazzling crimson light. He straightened his palm as a saber, and slashed at the Tsangtian Dao Jian. The saber power was terrifying, and it emitted threads that looked like black gas. It was the embodiment of the killing intent, and the deathly aura condensed to the extreme. The deathly aura of annihilation would destroy everything in its path, and all things would wither and die. The black thread-like deathly aura spread out in the void, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. Although there was still a lot of light shining through, the world suddenly darkened and fell into a deathly silence. It was as if all living beings would die. However, the Tsangtian Dao Jian's mighty sword light continued to slash apart these terrifying black threads. The bright sword light caused the void to regain its luster. The Tsangtian Dao Jian, who had attained the Tao since ancient times, had never suffered any great tribulations. He had already reached the peak of the Mahayana stage. Even a Tao integration stage powerhouse like Emo Xiaoluo, who was good at killing, was inferior to him. While the powerful sword light suppressed Emo Xiaoluo, it also swept through the void and swept Sikongyu, Shin Qifeng, and the others into it. King Yama, who was fighting with Gu Yuankai, glanced at the Tsangtian Dao Jian. As expected of a magic treasure that had attained the Tao in ancient times. Although the king of the underworld's brush is also at the peak of the Mahayana stage, it is still inferior in terms of killing power in a one-on-one battle. However, I can't allow you to ruin His Majesty's grand plan. As King Yama spoke, his black robe spread out, and an earth-shattering roar suddenly came from within the thick black mist. Within the black mist, a few crimson specks of light lit up. Being stared at by those crimson specks of light was like being stared at by a few primordial beasts. Gu Yuankai and the Tsangtian Dao Jian were both surprised. This feeling. Those crimson specks of light became clearer and clearer within the black mist. Then a few huge figures rushed out of the black mist. They really were a few giant beasts. Among these giant beasts, there was a heavenly demon ape, a refinement black dragon, a Kuan-peng, and even a Zhenhou. Although they were of different races, these great beasts all exuded the same aura at this moment. They were violent and bloodthirsty, but their expressions were extremely stiff, like walking corpses. No matter what color their bodies were originally, they were all jet black now. There was a faint crimson glow circulating around them, and their blazing blood chi spread out, causing one's heart to palpitate. Gu Yuankai, the South Pole treasure gourd, and the Tsangtian Dao Jian were slightly surprised. This feeling is a bit like the god-slaying puppets refined by the ancient Devil Dao sect's Puppet Dao, but they were refined from the demon race. The Puppet Dao sect was an ancient Devil Dao sect. They were arrogant and vicious for a period of time. They used the bodies of other cultivators to refine puppets. Because they angered the public, they were attacked by the public. Soon, they were annihilated in the long river of history. However, they also left a strong mark in the history of the human cultivation world. Gu Yuankai and the others naturally knew about this. During the Middle Era, there was a Devil Dao sect in the vast thousand world of the Divine Land called the Wanshou sect. They improved the Puppet Dao's orthodoxy, and changed to using the bodies of the demon race to refine puppets. Could it be these things? Although the ancient emperor's bloodline hid in the ancient longevity world, and was relatively isolated from the outside world, they were not completely cut off from the outside world. The ancient emperor's bloodline also knew about some of the more widespread and influential matters. They had heard of the name of the Wanshou sect before. Naturally, they also knew that this Devil Dao sect was most famous for refining puppets using the bodies of the demon race. The puppets created by the Tao of Puppet were made from human nascent divinity cultivators. They were called the god-slaying puppets, while the puppets created by the myriad beasts sect were made from the bodies of great demons with indestructible demon souls. They were called the beast god puppets. Because the puppets only had the power to kill, the demon race cultivators who collected the corpses of the demon race were also demons with relatively strong physical strength. After the Wansho sect was destroyed in the Middle Era, almost all the members of the sect died. Most of the beast god puppets in the sect were also destroyed. But now, what appeared in front of Gu Yuankai and the others was a group of beast god puppets. When did they prepare such a method? There was no news about it before. What made Gu Yuankai and the others frown was that there were two beast god puppets refined from the bodies of great demons of the Star Soul Unification stage. They were like two Dao integration stage martial arts masters. The power of their flesh and blood was earth-shattering as they pounced toward the group. The top two beast god puppets were mainly targeting the Tsangtian Dao Jian, who was suppressing Mo Shuluo and the others. Chapter 1239. A heaven-reaching demon ape and an armored black dragon were both great demons of the unity of the stars and souls realm when they were alive, but now they were refined into beast god puppets using a secret technique. These two great demons were known for their physical strength, and now that they were refined into flesh puppets, the power of their blood and flesh was extremely powerful. Gu Yuankai snorted at this scene and did not say anything. Just the scene before them was witnessed by the Dragon Clan and Primordial Demon Ape Clan. These two great demon clans would not let this matter rest. The king of the underworld's lineage had also let go of their scruples and went all out. Currently, they were attacking the Taishu Temple and the Haotian Mirror together. No matter who won or lost, the Dragon Clan would find trouble with the king of the underworld if they had the strength to spare. Unlike the Scarlet Thunder Dragon King that Lin Feng had refined into a doppelganger, this Black Dragon King that was refined into a beast god puppet by the king of the underworld's lineage was a great demon of the Dragon Clan of the unity of the stars and souls realm. Facing the two beast god puppets that were attacking him, the Tsangtian Dao Jian let out a sword hum in the void, like the morning bell and evening drum, resounding through the heavens. Rays of sword light slashed down, dazzling and blinding, lighting up the entire sky, slashing at the two beast god puppets. The two beast god puppets let out a deafening roar. Not only were their physical bodies powerful, their defensive power was also astonishing, especially the armored black dragon. Although his strength was not as strong as the heaven-reaching demon ape, his defensive power was outstanding, allowing him to resist the Tsangtian Dao Jian's sword light head-on. But the hundreds of millions of sword light that the Tsangtian Dao Jian shot out suddenly condensed into one, turning into a magnificent sword light that focused on a single point of attack. That extremely sharp edge made even the armored black dragon feel great pressure, as if its scales were about to be pierced through. Although the strength of the refined puppets was still powerful, it was still inferior compared to when they were alive. However, after being refined into puppets, both the Tongtian Devil Ape and the Black Dragon were unafraid of death, and attacked the Tsangtian Dao Jian head-on. While the Tsangtian Dao Jian was concentrating on attacking the Black Dragon, the beast god puppet refined by the Tongtian Demon Ape continued to pounce towards the Tsangtian Dao Jian. While Tsangtian Dao Jian was obstructed by the beast god puppets, Mo Shilua led the other Nether Palace cultivators to attack Yangqing, Li Yuanfang, Gu Peng, and the others. However, after the Tsangtian Dao Jian had tested the puppet's foundation, he did not continue to attack recklessly. Instead, his sword light made a sharp turn in the void, turning into a dark shadow that evaded the Tongtian Demon Ape's attack. Then with extreme speed, he arrived behind Mo Shuluo in a split second. Mo Shuluo was startled. His body suddenly turned into a sharp black light, blocking the Tsangtian Dao Jian's attack. The Tongtian Demon Ape's eyes were bloodshot, his face expressionless. He let out a murderous roar without any clear meaning, and with his powerful explosive power, he chased after the Tsangtian Dao Jian. However, the Tsangtian Dao Jian's attack only touched the Tongtian Demon Ape's body, but he did not linger. He turned into a dim sword shadow, appearing and disappearing in the void, once again evading the Tongtian Demon Ape's pursuit. The Tsangtian Dao Jian's speed was extremely fast. Other than the Tongtian Demon Ape, Mo Shilua, and the armored black dragon could not keep up with him. However, When the armored black dragon puppet and Emoshilua tried to attack Yangqing and the others, they would be attacked by the Tsangtian Dao Jian. Even though he had turned into a dim sword shadow, the Tsangtian Dao Jian's attacks were still extremely powerful, and his lethality was astonishing. Emoshilua and the armored black dragon simply spread out their formation and assisted the Tongtian demon ape to surround the Tsangtian Dao Jian. The Tsangtian Dao Jian was not afraid, and his sword light kept flickering in the void, fighting with Emoshilua and the others. However, in this way, the Tsangtian Dao Jian could no longer take care of Xikongyu, Xin Qifeng and the others. The group of underworld hall cultivators immediately attacked Yangqing, Li Yuanfang, Gu Peng and the others. Xikongyu, who was leading the group, flipped his palm, and a small temple appeared in his palm. Xikongyu lifted it up, and the temple flew up into the sky. Its size kept growing, and as a black light flashed, it turned into a huge temple hall with a height of 81 meters and a circumference of 81 meters. The temple did not consecrate gods and Buddhas, but instead consecrated many mournful ghosts with distorted movements. They exuded an extremely uncomfortable feeling, as if they were surrounded by despair, madness, distortion, and evil. But most of all, it was fear. When the black light of the ghost temple brushed past them, the cultivators below the void return realm felt their hearts palpitate, and they fell into a state of collapse and madness in extreme fear. It was the incarnation-grade magic treasure refined by Xikongyu, the fierce ghost temple. This treasure was taken away by the former king Chujiang after Xikongyu was besieged by Wang Lin, Zhang Lai, and the former king Chujiang. However, after the battle of destroying Xian realm, the king of the underworld eliminated the traitor Su Anda and resubdued the people of the underworld hall. This magic treasure naturally returned to the hands of Xikongyu, who was loyal to the king of the underworld. In the battle that year, Xikongyu suffered heavy losses, and a large number of the spirit ghosts he refined were destroyed. For ordinary ghost cultivators, it was no different from the pain of losing an arm. From the time of the battle of destroying Xian realm until now, it was difficult to refine powerful spirit ghosts and ghosts again, even if they focused on retraining. However, although Xikongyu was a big shot in the ghost Dao, he was different from other ghost Dao cultivators. His most important combat power did not lie in the spirit ghost that carried him around. Instead, it lay in his many strange and overbearing divine abilities and the treasure, the fierce ghost temple. At this moment, as he gently put his palms together, an incomparably terrifying and huge malicious spirit appeared above the fierce ghost temple. Its waist was connected to the roof of the temple, and its body above the waist spread its arms and let out a sky-shaking ghost howl. Even Yangqing and Li Yuanfang felt their minds tremble when they heard this ghost howl, and they felt dizzy. Gu Peng, the void return expert of the ancient emperor's bloodline, stretched out his right arm, and a jet-black vine wrapped around his right hand. The vine grew rapidly, and a white flower appeared at the top. As the white flower bloomed, a desolate, ancient, and endless aura spread out. Although the black light of the fierce ghost temple was fierce, after the white flower bloomed, it suddenly became less fierce, and it made people's hearts palpitate. Although the ear-piercing ghost howl still sounded, it was not as frightening as before. Gu Peng activated his incarnation-level magic treasure, the longevity ancient vine, and immediately fought against Xikongyu and the fierce ghost temple. Beside Xikongyu stood a man in a black robe. He was tall, and his qi and blood were extremely majestic. However, under the influence of the chaotic death qi of the king of the underworld, he was filled with a strange and ominous feeling. This was a martial arts expert of the void return realm. When the acupoints all over his body vibrated, it was like stars shining. A martial artist's yang qi and blood combined with the dark death qi, forming a strange change, as if the extreme yang gave birth to yin. He was the palace master of the underworld hall's branch hall, one of the 10 kings of hell, the turning wheel king. In the past, his cultivation was also at the primordial spirit incarnation realm. In recent years, he had successfully refined his spirit to return to the void, and entered the void return realm. In a flash, the chakra king's 10 fingers were like hooks and claws, and he folded his arms, as if he was spinning a wheel. However, the gloomy aura made everyone shiver, as if they would be torn into pieces in an instant. Among the ancient tribe cultivators, Another Void Return Realm expert snorted coldly and took a step forward to meet the Chakra King. The other ancient tribe cultivators also began to fight with the remaining experts of the Underworld Hall. Yang Qing and Li Yuanfang also threw themselves into the battle. Li Yuanfang's figure fell behind, but he did not slow down at all. His hands kept changing gestures, and waves of magic power were released, forming array patterns in the void. Many array patterns fused together to form a huge array. Li Yuanfang took a gourd from his waist, pulled out the stopper of the gourd, and poured out a stream of water. The stream of water shimmered with azure light. It seemed to be a small amount, but when a drop of water fell into the array, it instantly turned into a vast ocean. The entire stream of water fell, and the momentum of the water spread out completely, as if it was endless. Next, Li Yuanfang took a leather bag from his waist and poured out a large amount of fine sand. The fine sand sparkled like stars. The primordial true water and star sand were refined by Li Yuanfang himself using a secret technique. They were treasures specially used to set up arrays. Unlike the Eternal Sand spell, which refined the primordial true water and star sand into one, under the activation of Li Yuanfang's magic power, the two treasures were clearly separated and combined. It was as if the stars had gathered to form a vast and dazzling Milky Way. The Milky Way combined with the array patterns and talismans, and the array suddenly unfolded. Within the array, the Milky Way turned 9 times, and it was magnificent and magnificent. Under the shroud of the array, everyone felt as if they were in a sea of stars. It was created by Li Yuanfang, the River Luo Heavenly Gates Array, and the Northern Heavenly Gates 9 Melody Heavenly River Array. It was created by comprehending Xianmen Tianzong's 4 symbols heaven opening scripture, and combining it with what Li Yuanfang had gained from studying the 9 Glory Sky Shattering Array. Wherever the 9 Melody Heavenly River Array spread, the Milky Way Array twisted and turned, trapping all the Underworld Hall cultivators. They felt their magic power become sluggish, and countless stars bombarded them. Their attacks toward Yang Qing and the ancient race cultivators were diverted by the zigzagging and flowing Milky Way. With this, the situation of the battle suddenly changed, and the Underworld Hall cultivators suffered a great loss. Even the disobedient King Sikongyu and the Chakra King were affected by the array. They wanted to break the array first, but Gu Peng and the others wouldn't agree. Instead, they cooperated with the 9 Melody Heavenly River Array and launched an even more ferocious attack. Li Yuanfang's expression was calm, and his hands kept changing the hand seals. The 9 Melody Heavenly River Array shone brightly, and it gradually broke through the sky. It started to attract a large amount of stars' power, and it made its power even stronger. Li Yuanfang's expression changed slightly, and he suddenly looked up. He saw that in the meandering Milky Way in the array, a small boat with a black awning had appeared on the surface of the water formed by the combination of starlight and flowing water. A black-robed person stood on the boat with a black awning, and she held an ancient bronze lamp in her hand that looked like a lotus flower. However, the lamp's flame was green, and it looked like a will-o'-the-wisp. That person reached out from the black robe, and the hand holding the lamp was slender and pale. It seemed to be the hand of a woman. Li Yuanfang's expression didn't change. King Pingding. Li Yuanfang wasn't unfamiliar with the opponent in front of him. The Underworld Hall's former hallmaster Su Anda had been captured by Lin Feng, and Xianmen Tianzong had a deep understanding of the Underworld Hall's subordinates. The woman in front of him was another Underworld Hall's sub-hall master, and one of the 10 Yama Kings, the King Pingdang. She carried 2 Dharma treasures, the black awning boat under her feet, and the bronze ghost lamp in her hand. The bronze ghost lamp was the Underworld Hall's Dharma treasure, the spirit convening lamp, while the black awning boat was refined from the immemorial era's human emperor, Emperor Wen's Tao orthodoxy. Chapter 1240. The primordial era was the era when the demon clan ruled over the heavens. The human clan was weak, but it gradually rose with the first emperor's continuous efforts. In the process of the human clan's rise, generations of leaders and powerhouses took their place. From the first human emperor to the last human emperor of the primordial era, all the previous human emperors fell at the hands of the demon clan. However, there was no lack of powerhouses who left their names in history. One of the human emperors was known as Emperor One. His reputation shook the world. The first emperor died before he succeeded in refining the immortal dragon city. The immortal dragon city was lost without a trace. Emperor Wen's river diagram and inscription of the Luo was the first complete creation Dharma treasure in the history of the human clan. Although it was destroyed along with Emperor Wen by the hands of the primordial demon clan's holy emperor, absolute sovereign Xianshang, it left an indelible mark in the history of the human clan. At the same time, Emperor Wen was also the ancestor of the human clan's Dharma formations. Even today, he was recognized as one of the powerhouses with the highest attainments in Dharma formations in the history of the human clan. Although Emperor Wen's orthodoxy was almost destroyed, his attainments in Dharma formations had always influenced many human clan cultivators in the future. While the king of the underworld's orthodoxy had been dormant for a long time, it had also secretly recruited a large number of devil path cultivators and itinerant cultivators. The current king of equality, formerly known as Lady Miao Yin, was an itinerant cultivator who had accidentally obtained the Great Era and the scattered inheritance of Emperor Wen's orthodoxy. Later, after joining the Underworld Hall, he turned what he had learned into the orthodoxy of the King of the Underworld. After verifying and combining the two, he finally succeeded in becoming a nascent divinity. Although he was only in the nascent divinity incarnation realm, King of Equality's attainments in Dharma formations were so high that he could be counted on one hand in the entire Underworld Hall. In the past, the Underworld Hall Master Su Anda had once said that without comparing the strength of divine ability and Dharma power, this woman was above the reincarnation sect master of the Hell Path, Dark Lord, who was in the Void Return realm. As for the black awning boat under her feet, it was a Dharma treasure refinement method passed down from Emperor Wen's orthodoxy during the primordial age. The black awning boat was called the River Luo boat. It specialized in breaking Dharma formations of others, and it could also analyze Dharma formations and discern the principles within. In the past, Emperor Wen had forged an even more powerful Luo River boat. His original intention was to use it to analyze all kinds of primitive ancient formations in the world, so that he could transform them into formations that human cultivators could easily master. It could be used to defend against enemies. It had no other use, but its ability to break arrays was renowned throughout the history of the human race. However, Emperor Wen's Luo River boat had been destroyed a long time ago, and the method to refine it had been lost for many years. It was to the point that most cultivators had forgotten it. But at this moment, Li Yuanfang, through his 9 tunes heavenly river formation, sensed the mysterious power and aura contained within the black awning boat. He knew that it must be the Luo River boat refined by King Pingdeng. Although it was still a spirit-nurturing great Dharma treasure, its wondrous effects were already apparent. It carried the King Pingdeng through Li Yuanfang's 9 tunes heavenly river formation, far more freely than the other Underworld Hall cultivators. It even searched for the eye of the formation where Li Yuanfang was. The King Pingdeng was also a confidant of the King of the Underworld. His temperament was relatively indifferent, but he was loyal and devoted to the King of the Underworld. At this moment, he was protecting the King of the Underworld with all his might. This kid has yet to form his nascent soul, but the formation he laid seems to be no weaker than that old ghost. The King Pingdeng was also calculating the changes in the 9 tunes heavenly river formation. Although the Luo River boat was powerful in breaking formations, it was also related to the level of the Dharma treasure itself. It also needed to coordinate with Emperor Wen's lineage's special divine ability to calculate in order to be effective. If a cultivator's attainments and talent in formations were not enough, it would be difficult for them to control the Luo River boat. The King Pingdeng's talent and strength in formations were extraordinary, so he could naturally control the Luo River boat to pass through Li Yuanfang's formation. However, it was not enough to break through the 9 tunes heavenly river formation. Therefore, the King Pingdeng searched for the eye of the formation, found Li Yuanfang, and directly attacked Li Yuanfang. She looked at Li Yuanfang and gently shook the spirit-convening lamp in her hand. The green ghost fire began to flicker violently, and a strange suction force came from the lamp. Li Yuanfang frowned slightly. He did not feel anything strange in his body, but his spirit began to become unstable. It was as if his spirit had left his body and was sucked into the green lamp fire. As his spirit became unstable, the entire Nine Tunes heavenly river formation shook slightly, as if it was about to fall into a sluggish state. Li Yuanfang's gaze also fell on the King Pingdang. With a flip of his palm, a rusty brass bell appeared. It was the soul-calming bell. The bell rang continuously, instantly breaking the attack of the King Pingdang's spirit-convening lamp. He had yet to form his nascent soul, so he could not fully utilize the soul-calming bell. He should not have been able to defeat the King Pingdang's spirit-convening lamp. However, as long as the spirit-convening lamp's evil technique was slightly weakened, Li Yuanfang could stabilize his spirit and not be affected by the spirit-convening lamp. Under the black robe, the King Pingdang said lightly, "This Dharma treasure of yours originally belonged to the Underworld Hall. Don't you think it's ridiculous to use it to compete with us?" She extended her other hand out of the black robe and lightly tapped the spirit-convening lamp. The dark green flame of the lamp trembled, and a line of fire shot out from it, heading straight for the soul-calming bell. When the line of fire landed on the soul-calming bell, streaks of gray light suddenly surged and enveloped the soul-calming bell. The bell's chimes immediately became muffled, and the evil power of the spirit-convening lamp began to take effect once again. However, Li Yuanfang seemed to ignore this. As his right hand changed its incantation, he continued to control the Nine Tunes heavenly river formation. His left hand's incantation suddenly became strange, and he pointed his finger at the soul-calming bell. With his gentle point, the soul-calming bell suddenly vibrated. Then, a pitch-black light lit up on the soul-calming bell, and the faint sound of wind could be heard. Although the black light seemed ordinary, it made the King Pingdang's heart palpitate. His intuition told him that there was a great danger hidden within. The next moment, countless black nobility winds suddenly spread out with the soul-calming bell as the center, forming a huge formation. Instead, it followed the dark green line of fire and shrouded the King Pingdang. It was the Black Sea Immortal Trap Array that Li Yuanfang had obtained from opening the Western Heavenly Gate. The soul-calming bell's chimes became increasingly muffled and ethereal, almost disappearing without a trace. However, the power within it rose, breaking free from the restriction of the dark green line of fire. The reason why the bell chimes became muffled was because its power had completely merged with the Black Sea Immortal Trap Array. Seeing the Black Sea Immortal Trap Array shrouding him, the King Pingdang's body shook slightly under the black robe. The black robe suddenly fell off, and from it, streaks of gray light rushed out. These streaks of light transformed into a roulette-like existence in the void. As the roulette rotated, it seemed like the cycle of life and death, the rebirth of yin and yang. This was the primordial spirit incarnation formed by the king of the underworld's Tao orthodoxy. After the King Pingdang revealed his primordial spirit incarnation, the center of the roulette spewed out streaks of gray mist and landed on the Luo River ship below. The Luo River ship, which originally looked like a small boat with a black canopy, did not change in appearance. However, its size had become smaller. It carried the King Pingdang's primordial spirit through the void, avoiding Li Yuanfang's Black Sea Immortal Trap Array. At the same time, streaks of gray light surged out of the King Pingdang's primordial spirit, and quickly formed a mysterious and complicated formation. It was like the 9 palaces of the River Luo, and the 9 palaces of the River Luo. From within, a powerful energy wave swept towards Li Yuanfang. Li Yuanfang's expression did not change. With a soft grunt, the light above his head flickered, and a tall, 4-faced, 8-armed giant appeared in the void. His 8 arms stirred the 8 trigrams, and in front of each of the 4 faces was a shining door. This was the Dharma form of heaven and earth that he had cultivated after attaining the late Yuanying stage. Above Li Yuanfang's Dharma form of heaven and earth, streaks of purple light flickered and turned into mysterious talismans. Then, they arranged themselves according to a unique rule, forming a small but exquisite and complicated circular formation. It was like a round mirror. It was Li Yuanfang's insightful treasured mirror array technique. The talismans formed by the array technique emitted a dazzling radiance, converging into a mirror-like beam of light that shone on the King Pingdang's formation. The King Pingdang suddenly realized that Li Yuanfang's technique was similar to her Luo River ship in terms of concept. Although he could not directly break the formation, Li Yuanfang was using the insightful treasured mirror array technique to analyze the mysteries of her formation. How magnificent is Emperor Wen's inheritance! For it to fall to this extent is truly a reckless waste of God's gift. The Dharma form of heaven and earth above Li Yuanfang suddenly let out a deep sigh. Inside the door corresponding to one of the faces, monstrous flames were burning fiercely. It was filled with the destructive concept of destruction and slaughter. It was extremely ruthless, as if it wanted to incinerate, destroy, and slaughter everything with its raging flames. As the void trembled, another formation began to rapidly form outside of the Nine Bends Heavenly River Formation and the Black Sea Immortal Trapping Formation. The surging flames turned into lines of fire, sketching one formation after another in the air. Then, they converged together to form a huge formation. Although it was launched later, it arrived first. Its formation speed was even faster than the King Pingding's River and Luo Nine Palaces formation. The River and Luo Heavenly Gates formation that Li Yuanfang had created, the Heavenly Fire Slaughtering Gods formation that opened the Southern Heavenly Gate. Among the four great formations formed by the River and Luo Heavenly Gates formation, this was the formation with the strongest offensive power. When it was created, apart from Li Yuanfang's own comprehension of Dao techniques and formations, the top-notch formation he used as reference was his master, Lin Feng's heaven-punishing sword formation. With a single thought from Li Yuanfang, raging flames spewed out. A boundless sea of fire spread across the void. The raging flames vaguely condensed into the shape of a sword. With a slash of the sword, the King Pingding's newly formed River and Luo Nine Palaces formation was cleaved into pieces before he could exert his strength. The raging flames did not stop there. They continued to charge toward the King Pingding's nascent soul. The Luo River ship was entangled by the Black Sea Immortal Trapping Formation, and could no longer help the King Pingding escape. For a moment, he could only watch as the raging flames approached him. However, at this moment, the devilish ape puppet that was fighting with the Tsangtian Dao Jian suddenly stopped paying attention to the Tsangtian Dao Jian. Even though it was struck by the sword, it did not resist. Instead, it charged toward the battlefield where Gu Peng, Li Yuanfang, and the others were. The Tsangtian Dao Jian was about to give chase, but Mo Shuluo and the armored black dragon puppet seemed to be prepared for this. They intercepted the Tsangtian Dao Jian's path after the devilish ape had passed through. The devilish ape puppet suddenly intervened in the battlefield where Gu Peng and the others were. Its raging energy forcefully broke through the Nine Heavenly Tunes formation and attacked Gu Peng and the others. Taking advantage of the fact that his opponent was wary of the devilish ape's sudden attack, the Chakravarti king suddenly pulled himself out. With a flash, he instantly appeared before Li Yuanfang. With a cold and brutal claw, he clawed at Li Yuanfang. Chapter 1241. The Chakravarti King, a martial arts expert of the Void Return realm, flashed above his head. His martial arts' true intent seemed to be condensing into a tangible form, forming an image of the reincarnation of all living beings in hell. His 10 fingers were like hooks and claws, ready to tear the living beings before him into pieces and send them into reincarnation. At this moment, he displayed the martial arts of the underworld reincarnation claw. In a flash, his figure was wrapped in a dense chilling aura, and he instantly pounced before Li Yuanfang. He did not aim at Li Yuanfang's Dharma form, but at Li Yuanfang himself. His martial arts physical body, which should have been blazing hot, was now exuding a bone-chilling coldness, sweeping up gusts of chilly wind as he attacked Li Yuanfang. Being ambushed by a martial arts expert at close range was a huge disaster for any cultivator who majored in spell formations. Even Li Yuanfang was no exception. After the Nine Tunes Heavenly River formation was broken, the Chakravarti king seized the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. He displayed the astonishing instantaneous explosive power and sprinting speed of a martial arts expert to the extreme, arriving before Li Yuanfang in the blink of an eye. He was so fast that Li Yuanfang could barely react. Being attacked at close range by a martial arts expert of the Void Return realm, this full-powered claw attack could directly tear apart Li Yuanfang's spirit and physical body. However, at this moment, the center of Li Yuanfang's belt suddenly lit up, revealing an extremely complicated spell formation. The spell formation was extremely mysterious and complicated, but at this moment, it was condensed into a square inch, engraved at the center of Li Yuanfang's belt. At this moment, the spell formation lit up not because of Li Yuanfang's will, but because it had been set up in advance. Once Li Yuanfang was faced with a huge threat, it would automatically activate under pressure. When the Chakravarti King's underworld reincarnation claw approached him, the originally shrunken spirit formation suddenly enlarged and expanded, turning into a magnificent and majestic spirit formation. Gusts of invisible and formless astral winds appeared one after another. It was the Nine Heavens astral gale formation that gathered the power of the Nine Heavens formless astral gale. The boundless astral winds piled up in layers, almost condensing into a solid. They had already lost the formless and formless quality of the astral winds. Instead, they were flowing with brilliant colors, dazzling and dazzling. At this moment, the Nine Heavens Gale formation gave up on attacking and focused all its power on defense. The reincarnation claws of the underworld of the Turning Wheel King fiercely clawed at the layer of dazzling astral winds. The horrifying physical strength of his thoroughly tempered body collided with the astral winds, producing a series of ear-piercing noises. The astral winds were shattered, but they continued to circulate and cut the hands of the Chakra King. At this moment, the shapeless storm was like the hardest fine iron in the world. Although a large part of it had been penetrated by the Chakra King's hands, it still managed to withstand the attack of the Chakra King. Be it the Chakra King or the Equality King, their pupils constricted abruptly. This person has purposely prepared the Nine Heavens hurricane formation for defense, to prevent anyone from getting close to him. Li Yuanfang's heaven and earth manifestation let out a loud roar. At this moment, the attack of the heavenly fire god slaughtering formation changed direction and attacked the Chakra King. His expression was calm as usual, without the slightest change. Just now, because the Nine Tunes heavenly river formation was broken too suddenly, the ancient race expert who was fighting with the Chakra King was disturbed by the puppet of the heavenly demonic ape. As a result, the Chakra King was unexpectedly able to break free and launch a surprise attack on Li Yuanfang. When the surprise attack happened, because the Chakra King was too fast, Li Yuanfang was unable to react in time. However, Li Yuanfang was never a person who would cram for Buddha's feet at the last minute. Li Yuanfang knew better than anyone about the pros and cons of specializing in formations, and not cultivating other remarkable powers. If he was really attacked by a top-notch martial arts expert, even if he could react in time, it was still unknown how effective the formation he set up in a hurry would be. Therefore, Li Yuanfang usually condensed the Nine Heavens astral gale formation, and set it up properly. The formation would only attack the enemy when Li Yuanfang took the initiative to control it. Normally, it would be temporarily still. Once there was an attack, it would automatically activate its defense without Li Yuanfang's control to protect itself from the enemy's surprise attack. Li Yuanfang's style had always been to plan in advance, think carefully, and minimize uncertainties and unknown problems as much as possible. He would control the situation and achieve the expected goal accurately and steadily. If the opponent was strong enough to ignore the Nine Heavens astral gale formation and break through its defense in an instant, it would mean that the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. In that case, Li Yuanfang had nothing to complain about. However, if he couldn't break through the Nine Heavens astral gale formation in one blow, and gave Li Yuanfang time to react, then it would be Li Yuanfang's turn to counterattack. As the violent heavenly fire god slaughtering formation rotated, raging flames poured down and attacked the Turning Wheel King. The soul-calming bell in the Black Nightmare immortal trapping formation rang continuously and merged with the formation. Similarly, it attacked the Equality King and suppressed his spirit consciousness. The Equality King's heart trembled slightly. This person really can't be underestimated. He's still so calm even when the Turning Wheel King is close to him. Although the Turning Wheel King missed his attack and couldn't kill Li Yuanfang immediately, the threat posed by a martial adept who was close to a formation cultivator was self-evident. However, even when facing the Turning Wheel King, Li Yuanfang still remained calm. He didn't panic even when a martial adept was close to him. While dealing with the Turning Wheel King's attack, he still didn't let go of the Equality King. If he focused on dealing with the Turning Wheel King and ignored the existence of the Equality King, he would be facing a disaster. When the Turning Wheel King and the Equality King worked together, the Turning Wheel King would be the main attacker while the Equality King would assist from the side to break through Li Yuanfang's formation. The threat posed was even greater. He would be able to break through Li Yuanfang's defense with irresistible force. Separating them and preventing the two from joining forces was the best choice to deal with the current situation. Although Li Yuanfang's expression turned solemn, there was no fluctuation in his eyes. He calmly dealt with the Turning Wheel King and the Equality King. Because of Li Yuanfang's unexpected defense, the Turning Wheel King wasn't discouraged after missing his attack. Instead, he let out a hideous laugh and continued to attack Li Yuanfang with the sinister and vicious underworld reincarnation claws. The momentum of the claw was endless, like the cycle of reincarnation. And it was endless. Although Li Yuanfang's performance was beyond his expectations, it was still disadvantageous for a spell formation cultivator to be closed in by a martial arts expert. The Turning Wheel King had already refined his void return body into his physical body. At this moment, he unleashed his martial arts cultivation to the fullest and tore through the protection of the astral wind layer in front of him, attacking Li Yuanfang. His speed was like mist and illusion. In a flash, his figure seemed to have transformed into thousands of claw shadows that besieged him from all directions. In the face of the attack from the heavenly fire god slaughtering formation, the Turning Wheel King clenched his teeth and faced the attack head-on. He wanted to seize the opportunity to break through Li Yuanfang's defense first and kill him. The Equality King also braced himself. Rays of light rushed out from the gray wheel formed by his vital spirit and strengthened the Luo River ship. With the protection of the spirit convening lamp, he broke through Li Yuanfang's Dark Sea Immortal Trapping formation and attempted to rendezvous with the Turning Wheel King, so that they could attack Li Yuanfang together. Li Yuanfang responded calmly. He performed many variations of the formation and faced the two experts of the Underworld Palace. Although the Turning Wheel King had closed in on him, the Equality King was also proficient in formations, and the Luo River ship was helping him to break through the formation. Li Yuanfang was calm and tenacious. Even though he had temporarily lost the advantage, he still maintained a watertight defense and did not allow his opponent to take a step forward. However, Li Yuanfang was not at ease. For him, the biggest threat was not the Turning Wheel King and the Equality King, but the heavenly demonic ape puppet that broke through his 9 Tunes heavenly river formation and caused a sudden change in the situation. The speed of this beast god puppet was extremely fast. Although the Tsangtian Dao Jian could catch up with its speed, Emo Xiolua and the black armored dragon puppet were also constantly obstructing and besieging the Tsangtian Dao Jian. In addition to these two most powerful beast god puppets, there were several other beast god puppets with lower levels joining in the siege against Gu Peng, Yang Qing, and Li Yuanfang. A beast god puppet refined by the primordial true spirit realm Swan and I rushed over and also attacked Li Yuanfang. Although it could not activate the purple smoke cosmos thunder of the Swan and I clan, it still had a strong physical strength, which could not be underestimated. The Tsangtian Dao Jian turned into a shadow and sped away. In a flash of sword light, the Swan and I puppet was severely injured. On the other side, the heavenly demonic ape puppet directly tore the 9 heavens astral gale formation that protected Li Yuanfang with a punch. In a flash of sword light, the Tsangtian Dao Jian caught up with the heavenly demonic ape puppet again and forced it to retreat. But Emo Xiolua and the black armored dragon puppet also caught up. The battle situation was extremely chaotic. The Turning Wheel King took this opportunity to rush through the broken 9 heavens astral gale formation and clawed at Li Yuanfang. Li Yuanfang looked solemn, but he still remained calm. The heaven and earth form above his head vibrated, and a long river flashing with starlight zigzagged in front of him, blocking the Turning Wheel King once again. This was the 9 heavenly bends celestial river formation that he temporarily constructed with his own supernatural power. In a hurry, the Turning Wheel King's claw still broke through the Star River and clawed at Li Yuanfang. Li Yuanfang's heaven and earth form blocked the attack for him, leaving 5 severe wounds on the huge Dharma form. However, Li Yuanfang's heavenly fire god-slaughtering formation exploded at this moment, and the violent power bombarded the Turning Wheel King, causing him to tremble. However, the power of the Black Sea Immortal Trapping Formation that trapped the King of Equality was inevitably weakened due to the distraction. Slowly, the Luo River ship carried the King of Equality out of the Black Sea Immortal Trapping Formation. However, the Nine Heavens Astral Gale Formation reconstructed its defense. Layers of astral winds overlapped and formed a solid layer of glowing astral winds, sealing the King of Equality outside. However, within the Nine Heavens Astral Gale Formation, the Turning Wheel King's attacks became more and more urgent. He continued to attack Li Yuanfang, not giving Li Yuanfang any chance to catch his breath. Li Yuanfang activated the River Luo Heavenly Gates Formation and the Eastern Heavenly Gates Light Dust Transformation Formation, combining the 9 Heavenly Bends Formation and the 9 Heavens Astral Gale Formation together. The formation connected the inside and the outside, and it was capable of both offense and defense, blocking the Turning Wheel King's attacks. However, the Turning Wheel King's speed was extremely fast within a short distance. He shuttled back and forth continuously, and even Li Yuanfang felt overwhelmed. While Li Yuanfang was fighting the Turning Wheel King with all his might, the King of Equality also began to attack the 9 Heavens Astral Gale Formation's defense, shaking the formation and assisting the Turning Wheel King. Li Yuanfang's situation suddenly became perilous. His expression was solemn, and he communicated with the Black Sea Immortal Trapping Formation with his mind. At the same time, he manipulated the Light Dust Transformation Formation and the 9 Heavenly Bends Formation. While he was busy, he suddenly put his hands together. As the raging flames surged, the Heavenly Fire God-slaughtering Formation appeared once again. This was the first time that the 4 gates of the River Luo Heavenly Gates Formation had been opened. Chapter 1242. In the void, the 9 Heavens Astral Gale Formation transformed into layers of barriers that surrounded Li Yuanfang. On top of the astral winds, there were 4 huge formations that stood in 4 directions. Like 4 heavenly gates, they gradually formed an extremely huge formation. This formation trapped the Chakravarti King and the other kings within it. The Black Hurricane, the Star River, the Blazing Sword Peak, and the glittering dust swirled ceaselessly, forming a boundary that fought against the Chakravarti King and the other kings. This formation of his is truly powerful, and this is still in an incomplete state. At the same time, he still lacks many crucial treasures to set up the formation. The Prince of Equality's heart was heavy. For a late-stage nascent soul cultivator to be able to set up such a powerful formation, whether it is his magical power or his attainments in formations, they are truly beyond common sense. She steered the Luo River boat and the spirit convening lamp, like a lonely boat in the storm, constantly rocking in the mysterious river and Luo Heavenly Gates formation. However, the King of Equality still calmed his mind and continued to deduce and analyze Li Yuanfang's river and Luo Heavenly Gates formation, then contacted the Chakravarti King. The Chakravarti King, who attempted to break the formation by force, was more at ease with the King of Equality's help. Although he was also trapped in the river and Luo Heavenly Gates formation, he was still firmly nailed to the formation eye, chasing after Li Yuanfang. If he allowed Li Yuanfang to attack, he would be surrounded in the formation, and the Chakravarti King would probably be slowly tortured to death by Li Yuanfang. Naturally, the Chakravarti King would not sit and watch this happen. Therefore, he kept close to Li Yuanfang and attacked Li Yuanfang directly. The two sides started a huge battle in the river and Luo Heavenly Gates formation. Under the attacks of the Chakravarti King, Li Yuanfang was under great pressure and suffered continuous injuries. However, the Chakravarti King and the King of Equality were also injured by the formation. After the 4 gates were opened, the river and Luo Heavenly Gates formation had the Black Nightmare Immortal Entrapping formation to suppress the spirit. The 9 Tunes Heavenly River formation had both offense and defense, and the Heavenly Fire God-slaughtering formation. Moreover, it was even more complex and abstruse, making it difficult to defend against. He even guided the strong gales of the Nine Heavens Hurricane Formation into the formation to attack the Chakravarti King and the Equal King. However, the River and Luo Heavenly Gate Formation, which had opened all 4 gates, was still incomplete and was still being studied. Li Yuanfang would never use such an imperfect formation that was full of uncertainties, unless he had no other choice. However, in this stalemate, Li Yuanfang still opened all 4 gates of the River Luo Heavenly Gates formation, and faced off against the Chakravarti King and the Equality King. The battle between the two sides was extremely perilous. Although the 2 underworld hallmasters were badly battered by the River Luo Heavenly Gates formation, and could fall into the formation at any time, Li Yuanfang was also severely injured, or even killed when facing the Chakravarti King's fierce close combat. To Li Yuanfang, what was more disadvantageous was that there were still many tricks that he did not understand when he opened all 4 gates. Therefore, the formation was unstable and could collapse on its own if it was activated for a long period of time. Under the tremendous pressure, even Li Yuanfang's forehead was covered in sweat. However, he did not panic and remained calm. He activated his supernatural power and the changes of the formation to the maximum. In the battle with the Chakravarti King and the Equality King, Li Yuanfang's universal Dharma form, spirit, and physique were all damaged to varying degrees. Moreover, the injuries were gradually worsening. However, his mental state was becoming more and more full. His understanding of his Tao, supernatural power, and the great Tao of heaven and earth had also become more profound. The brand new domain that he could only vaguely see in the past was gradually unfolding in front of him. The principles that he did not understand in the past were slowly becoming clear. A rare hesitant expression appeared on Li Yuanfang's calm face. He raised his head slightly. Although his consciousness was still activating the formation to fight against the Chakravarti King and the Equality King, his eyes were fixed on the void. He seemed to be in a daze. At this moment, Li Yuanfang suddenly thought of the teachings of his master, Lin Feng. Yuanfang, you have a calm and strict personality, but in fact, you are walking the extreme path in another sense. In that conversation, Lin Feng rarely did not start with a joke, but rather went straight to the point, saying to Li Yuanfang, your path needs to be strict, it needs to be meticulous, it needs to be as precise as possible. This is in line with your personality, and it might also be a feasible path. However, there are no absolutes in this world. For example, if the emperor wishes to use the 3 lives karma curse to understand everything in the past, present, and future, even if his cultivation is high enough, he is still unable to truly be omniscient. Lin Feng looked at Li Yuanfang and said silently, it is feasible for you to pursue a strict and precise goal. However, you need to be vigilant in your heart. In this process, there will always be existences that you cannot grasp or be sure of. When these things really appear before you, you need to be aware of them and be good at dealing with them. Sometimes, while being calm and strict, we, the Tao cultivators, need to have the drive to forge ahead, the courage to make decisions, and the responsibility to bear the consequences. The words of his master, Lin Feng, once again appeared in his mind. The hesitation on Li Yuanfang's face disappeared, and he became determined again. Although he had lost the initiative, if he focused on defense and slowly tangled with the Chakravarti King and the other kings, Li Yuanfang was confident that he would not be defeated. However, the situation was changing rapidly. The ritual of the King of the Underworld continued to be carried out. Seeing all this, Li Yuanfang, who had always been strict and steady, made a very crazy move at this moment. He crushed a porcelain bottle and poured out an elixir that seemed to be formed by lingering clouds. Then he swallowed it. The primordial spirit gate, which had been faintly discernible in the past, became exceptionally clear today. At this moment, it was completely visible in front of Li Yuanfang. Today's bloody battle had allowed his understanding of his Tao and mystical powers to make steady progress. He had broken through the bottleneck that he had been stuck in for a long time, and had successfully stepped onto a critical point. The only problem was that he was surrounded by enemies. If he continued to attack the primordial spirit realm in such a situation, it would be very dangerous. He could lose his life at any time. It was an action that was close to suicide. Based on Li Yuanfang's usual character, he would never consider such a thing. However, today, perhaps it was because he felt the danger of the situation, or because the hidden spirit in his heart had erupted after breaking through the bottleneck, or because the opponent in front of him was the successor of Wen Huang's orthodoxy, and a martial arts expert that could restrain him the most. It made Li Yuanfang feel a sharp spirit that could overcome all obstacles and disregard the danger. At this moment, Li Yuanfang felt that this moment seemed to be like what his teacher, Lin Feng, had said. He needed to make a choice and take responsibility for it. A choice that he did not have absolute confidence in, and the outcome was unpredictable. After today, Li Yuanfang might not be so impulsive. This was the first and last time in his life to take a risk. However, at this moment, hesitation had completely disappeared from his heart. Li Yuanfang's yuanying abruptly left his body and turned into a stream of light. It merged with his worldly dharma form and blasted open the primordial spirit gate in the void together. The Chakravarti king and the equal kings were shocked by Li Yuanfang's actions. They did not expect Li Yuanfang to attack the primordial spirit realm at this moment. "You're courting death." The Chakravarti king reacted instantly. His eyes turned even colder. He began to ignore the attacks of the River Luo Heavenly Gates formation and rushed towards Li Yuanfang. The equal king also felt annoyed. He drove the Luo River ship through the River Luo Heavenly Gates formation. Then, he changed his hand seals and the River Luo 9 Palaces formation was reformed. The formation patterns flickered with dazzling brilliance. 9 beams of light descended and shot towards Li Yuanfang. However, just as Li Yuanfang's yuanying merged with the worldly dharma form, the entire River Luo Heavenly Gates formation suddenly shook violently under his command. Then it broke apart on its own. The violent power shattered the void in an instant. The 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and wind went berserk and stirred the surrounding void into chaos. The Chakravarti king and the equal kings tried to resist the impact. They wanted to take advantage of the moment when Li Yuanfang was at the primordial spirit realm to kill him and destroy his body and soul. However, other than the River Luo Heavenly Gates formation, even the 9 heavens astral wind formation on the periphery fell into a state of chaos at this moment. Sharp and fierce 9 heavens formless astral wind rampaged in the void. This was also the first time in Li Yuanfang's life that he had led the formation into chaos at his own will. Then he completely lost control and finally collapsed. The collapsed formation was not destroyed by his opponent. Instead, the formation's creator detonated it. The power contained in the formation spread out and immediately turned the vast void around it into a chaotic ocean. The Chakravarti king and the equal kings were trapped in this ocean. Bearing the impact of the chaotic spiritual qi, they could no longer stand firm. After all, Li Yuanfang was Li Yuanfang. Although he was also taking a risk, he would still do his best to prepare himself. He would not send himself into a perilous situation. The Chakravarti king and the equal kings were even more furious. However, they had no choice but to stop temporarily. Although the explosion of such power is violent, it won't last long. The cold killing intent in the Chakravarti king's eyes almost solidified. You want to break through to the primordial spirit realm. How can it be done in a short period of time? Just as he thought of this, the Chakravarti king suddenly widened his eyes. The equal king also had the same expression and movement. They were both dumbfounded. Li Yuanfang's yuanying merged with the dharma form of heaven and earth. It was as if he had instantly passed through the illusory door in the void, and was baptized by the laws of the great Tao of heaven and earth. The dharma form of heaven and earth suddenly collapsed and turned into talisman seeds. Each seed was like a small formation that rotated continuously in the void. In the next moment, these talisman seeds that looked like formations gathered continuously in the void. Finally, they turned into a huge taiji diagram. It was half black and half white. The 2 levels blended together and rotated slowly. Above the taiji diagram, a huge 9 palaces diagram appeared. There were 4 heavenly gates that stood in 4 directions. Silently, they served as a foil to the 9 palaces of He and Luo in the center. A calm and deep voice reverberated in the void. It was calm, profound, and grand. The heliocentric enlightenment enters the immortal sect. On Mount Kunlun, yin and yang are divided. The 4 symbols and 8 trigrams open the heaven and earth. The Qimen Duanjia determines the universe. The soul-stabilizing bell was swept up by the Taiji diagram. Then, the Taiji diagram rotated in the void and turned back into a skinny, tanned young man in purple. The Chakravarti king and the equal kings looked at Li Yuanfang, who had reappeared in front of them in shock. They were all dumbfounded. How can it be so fast? If Li Yuanfang had the ability to prove his primordial spirit realm, perhaps no one would be surprised. However, the fact that he could achieve the primordial spirit realm in such a short period of time was completely beyond the imagination of the Chakravarti king and the equal kings. It even overturned the understanding that they had cultivated for many years. Li Yuanfang, who had transformed back into his human form, looked calm and composed as usual. His expression did not change at all. He put his palms together and immediately, a huge formation appeared in the void, enveloping the Chakravarti king and the equal kings. Chapter 1243. The huge formation suddenly appeared in the void. The turbulence caused by the destruction of the river and Luo Heavenly Gates formation, and the 9 Heavens Astral Gale formation, began to gradually calm down after the appearance of the huge formation. A terrifying power shook the void at this moment. It was another river in Luo Heavenly Gates formation, but it was different from the one Li Yuanfang had set up in the later stages of Yuanying. The powerful formation before them operated without any sluggishness. The 4 heavenly gates were opened, and the power of the 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and wind interconnected with each other, showing a harmonious concept. As the formation operated, its power continued to increase, becoming more and more terrifying and astonishing. As Li Yuanfang successfully proved his nascent soul Dao, his river and Luo Heavenly Gates formation was finally perfected, showing an extremely powerful power that shook the heavens and the earth. After Li Yuanfang achieved nascent soul Dao, his magical power continued to grow. Not only did the formations he set up become more mysterious, but there were also earth-shattering changes in all aspects of power. With a soft shout, Li Yuanfang's nascent soul shed its human form and transformed into the 9-palace Taichi diagram again, covering the sky and the sun. The river and Luo Heavenly Gates formation he activated continued to expand. Not only did it engulf the Chakravarti king and the equal kings, but it also began to spread to the surrounding void, and was about to engulf the other underworld hall cultivators and the beast god puppets. Streaks of white flowing light flashed within the formation. When one came into contact with the flowing light, it was like a river of stars or flowing fire. It looked ordinary, but it was breathtaking. It was as if it could make one sink deep into it without them noticing. Gu Yuankai, Emoajura, King Yanluo, Songtian Daojian, and the others also noticed the changes in Li Yuanfang. When Li Yuanfang attempted to prove his nascent soul Dao, they were also surprised. They did not expect Li Yuanfang to dare to take such a risky move and break through to the nascent soul realm while fighting with the Chakravarti king and the equal king. Not only did he succeed in breaking through the nascent soul gate, but his speed was also beyond everyone's imagination. At that time, not only the Chakravarti king and the equal kings, but all the other underworld hall cultivators also wanted to kill Li Yuanfang. However, Gu Yuankai, Songtian Daojian, and the other experts were also vigilant and stopped them one by one, but the result was clearly beyond everyone's expectations. Gu Yuankai looked at Li Yuanfang, his heart surging. To have such means at the initial essence soul stage. The personal disciples of the Mystic Gates Master are indeed all geniuses. After Li Yuanfang proved his essence soul, the river Luo Heavenly Gates array was unleashed. The profound and vast power contained within was something that even Gu Yuankai could sense. Emo Shuluo was forced back by the Sword of Heavens, but he was slightly distracted and did not continue to attack. He thought to himself, this person has achieved essence soul Dao. I'm afraid there will be more waves in the battle. As far as the eye could see, Li Yuanfang's river Heavenly Gates array continued to expand, engulfing the experts of the Nether Hall one after another. Everything seemed to be replaying the scene when the 9 melodies heavenly river array was unfolding. Under the command of King Yama, the Tongtian devil ape puppet once again attacked the river Luo heavenly gate formation. The Tsangtian Dao Jian was already prepared for this. With a flash of sword light, he pierced the Tongtian demon ape's back. Although the Tongtian demon ape was not afraid of death after being refined into a puppet, it would still be severely injured if its vital parts were attacked. Under the control of King Yanluo, the Tongtian demon ape puppet used one of its hands to block the Tsangtian Dao Jian's sword, but its jet-black arm was stabbed until it was bloody. However, his other hand slammed heavily onto the river Luo heavenly gates formation, in an attempt to tear it apart again. The white light of the river Luo heavenly gates formation kept flashing, turning into a long river of white light that meandered 9 times, blocking the Tongtian demon ape puppet's claws. Upon contact with the white light, the huge body of the Tongtian demon ape puppet suddenly stiffened, as if it had suddenly lost its vitality. It became sluggish, as if it was going to turn from a walking corpse into a real corpse. The King of Hell frowned slightly. He knew that this was the effect of the Black Nightmare Immortal Trap formation that he had obtained from the River Luo Heavenly Gate formation. When the River Luo Heavenly Gate formation resisted the Tongtian demon ape puppet, it used the Tongtian demon ape puppet's weakness to affect the King of Hell's control over the Tongtian demon ape puppet. At this moment, the Tsangtian Dao Jian's attack began to increase. Under the control of King Yanluo, the Tongtian demon ape puppet's body shook, and it jumped up at an extremely fast speed. Its body seemed like it was going to collapse the sky. It broke free from the River Luo Heavenly Gates formation, and at the same time, avoided the Tsangtian Dao Jian's attack. Tsangtian Dao Jian was about to give chase, but Emo Shuluo and the armored black dragon puppet had already caught up and attacked him. With a flash of sword light, Tsangtian Dao Jian once again avoided Emo Shuluo and the armored black dragon puppet, and the Tongtian demon ape puppet was also forced to retreat. Li Yuanfang's River Luo Heavenly Gates formation was still slowly, but firmly spreading around. The Chakravarti king and the other kings, who were completely trapped in the formation, were suffering under the bombardment of the formation's power. The Chakravarti king had lost the advantage of close combat. At this moment, the awkwardness of a martial arts expert facing a formation expert was revealed. Trapped in the formation and unable to get out, he could only be beaten, constantly attacked by the formation, and it was difficult to reverse the situation. Not to mention continuing to attack Li Yuanfang. It was difficult for him to escape. At this moment, the Chakravarti king felt like he had fallen into a swamp. He could only watch helplessly as he continued to sink into the abyss of despair. The Pingding king drove the Luo River boat like a small boat in a storm. In the past, when it came to the formation of others, it had always been successful. But now it was useless. No matter how she deduced, the River Luo Heavenly Gates formation before her seemed to be shrouded in layers of fog. Occasionally, she could see through some of the mysterious changes of the River Luo Heavenly Gates formation, but it only made her sink deeper into despair. The extremely complicated theory of the formation's changes made her feel like an ignorant and helpless child. Even though she was proud of her attainments and talents in the formation, silently deducing the changes of the formation might have been possible under normal circumstances. But at this moment, she was trapped in the formation and faced with the heavy attacks. She did not have the time to slowly deduce it. The violent white light not only suppressed her spiritual thoughts, but also made her fall into an unconscious slumber. Even her consciousness was deprived. Moreover, the white light had a violent attacking power. Under the overwhelming attack of the white light, the spirit-convening lamp in the Pingding king's hand was the first to shatter. The sky full of attacks made the Pingding king's heart sink to the bottom. The power of this formation is above that of the Dark Lord of the Void Return Realm. In the process of the Chakravarti king and the Pingding king's final struggle, they could vaguely feel Li Yuanfang's emotions through the River Luo Heavenly Gates formation. It was an emotion of dissatisfaction, and this dissatisfaction was directed at Li Yuanfang himself. In the previous battle, the Dharma of heaven and earth was injured, and my vitality was also damaged. Although I have attained the primordial spirit Tao, I am still a little inferior to my peak state. Li Yuanfang did not express his thoughts on purpose. His primordial spirit had just formed, and his mind was still immersed in the Tao and divine powers. Thus, he naturally conveyed his thoughts. However, the Chakravarti king, the Pingding king, and all the cultivators trapped in the formation were dazzled and speechless. While Li Yuanfang was fighting fiercely with the Chakravarti king and the Pingding king, Yang Qing on the other side was also having a good time fighting with someone else. The new generation of the reincarnation sect's celestial path sect master, who was also one of the underworld hall's hall masters, and the newly appointed emperor Song of the 10 kings of hell, Tao Lord Tian Tan, Shen Qifeng, was surrounded by white light and attacked Yang Qing. The white light condensed into a tall light figure above Shen Qifeng's head. Its head reached the sky, and its feet stepped on the ground. Its figure was incomparably majestic. Even in the void where there was no sense of distance, one could still feel its majesty. The aura that the light figure exuded was ethereal, noble and proud. It was like a deity looking down on all living beings. The master of the heavenly law, Sakra. White light flashed continuously around the figure of Sakra. As it swept towards Yang Qing, it also protected Shen Qifeng, attacking and defending at the same time. In the past, our disciples have fought against each other. Now that we are masters, we have both improved since the Kunlun Mountain Dharma Assembly. Let's have a spar. Shen Qifeng's expression was calm, and he had a smile on his face, as if he was catching up with an old friend. Shen Qifeng looked at Yang Qing and said with a smile, "Your sect's divine powers are really powerful. Although your cultivation is in the late Yuanying realm, I admit that I am far from being your match when we are in the same realm. At this moment, I can only be thick-skinned and fight with you in the primordial spirit realm." Yang Qing's expression was calm, but there was a hint of indifference. As soon as Shen Qifeng made his move, he could already see that although Shen Qifeng had not cultivated his divine powers to return to the void, his divine powers and Dharma powers had made great progress compared to the time when he was in the Kunlun Mountain Dharma Assembly. At this moment, he was only a step away from the void return realm. Shen Qifeng's divine powers and Dharma powers were strong, and he was one of the best in the world when it came to the primordial spirit incarnation realm. However, Yang Qing's expression did not change at all. After hearing Shen Qifeng's words, he only replied indifferently, "You flatter me." As he spoke, he unleashed his divine powers and Dharma powers. Streams of dark green water, that flashed with 7-colored radiance, appeared in the void. After coming into contact with the white radiance emitted by Sakra's light shadow above Shen Qifeng's head, the dark green water suddenly changed into white radiance and rolled back toward Shen Qifeng. And what was even more shocking was that the white radiance that Shen Qifeng's divine powers and Dharma powers had actually changed sides at this moment. They were also wrapped up and attacked Shen Qifeng, the original owner. Shen Qifeng's eyes flashed slightly. This divine power seems to be a little familiar. It seems to be called, "All things follow the heart lunar mantra." The divine powers that used to only appear for a short time actually have such power now. Not only is it more complete, but it also becomes stronger as the cultivation of this person increases. The water that flashed with 7-colored radiance was the manifestation of Yang Qing's "All things follow the heart lunar mantra." As Yang Qing's cultivation realm continued to increase, his understanding of the heavenly Tao became deeper and deeper. Initially, he referred to Miao Shihao's light returning mirror, then the shadow ancient mirror of the shadow devil path, and even the myriad mirror of the Lu Yuan clan. After continuously perfecting and analyzing it, it once again shone brilliantly today. Facing Yang Qing's strange and overbearing "all things follow the heart lunar mantra," Shen Qifeng also frowned slightly. He clapped his palms lightly and a small flame appeared, like a red lotus. Chapter 1244. The flame was extremely pure and deep red, like a red lotus blooming in the void. Every petal of the lotus emitted a clear brilliance, presenting an illusory yet intoxicating beauty that made people want to throw their souls into it. It was one of the 7 great true fires in the world, the karmic fire of the red lotus controlled by the reincarnation sect's celestial path. The demonic red flame seemed to want to drag all the forests in the world into the cycle of reincarnation. Shen Qifeng stretched out a finger and pointed. The karmic fire of the red lotus bloomed in the void, blocking the light that was rolling back towards him. He took a deep breath and took out a golden pearl. That golden pearl flickered brightly in the sky and gradually transformed into a giant figure that was even more majestic than Sakra's image, as if it was the god that created all living things. It was a peak incarnation level magic treasure called the Nirvana Pearl. It was the most precious treasure of the reincarnation sect's celestial path, apart from the Six Paths Wheel. In the battle to destroy the Xian realm, Shi Tianfang died in battle, and the Six Paths Wheel was plotted against by Su Anda, the former master of the Underworld Hall, to create the Book of Life and Death. The remaining precious treasure of the celestial path was this Nirvana Pearl. When Lin Feng swept through the reincarnation sect's celestial path, this treasure was sent to a foreign space to be sacrificed. In the end, it luckily escaped the disaster. After Shen Qifeng took over the position of the celestial path sect master, the Nirvana Pearl became his personal magic treasure. Shen Qifeng raised the Nirvana Pearl. Slowly, the giant image of Nirvana raised its hand and pointed at Yangqing. With one finger, all things were created. The stone nodded, and the heaven and earth opened and closed. But after creation it was destruction, and all things came to an end. A golden light shot out from the fingertip of the image of Nirvana, and shot towards Yangqing. Yangqing's expression did not change. She similarly took out a scroll and unfurled it. A stinky and filthy nether blood river flowed out from within, polluting that golden radiance. The filthy and evil true blood river water continued to spread and roll in the air. Although he was at the late Yuanying stage, the blood river painting was used to defeat the enemy, mainly because of the blood river true water, which could maximize the power of this spirit-nurturing level magic treasure. As for Shen Qifeng's nascent soul incarnation realm, when he activated the incarnation-grade Dharma treasure, the heavenly Brahma Pearl, he was also unable to unleash its full power. But the Nirvana's precious pearl is worthy of being a magic treasure at the peak of the transformation stage. Its power is extremely strong. Even though that golden light is continuously tainted by the true water of the blood river, it still forcefully pierces through the nether blood river, still shooting towards Yangqing. Yangqing's expression didn't change at all, but one of his eyes turned pure gold, while the other turned dark green. At the same time, he spread out his left and right hands, and dark green lunar true water emerged in his left palm, while golden solar true fire burned in his right palm. The two great powers continued to condense, and then the solar true fire was suddenly injected into the lunar true water. The two completely opposing powers started to fuse, and a mysterious change occurred. In the center of the lunar true water that had merged with the true fire of the sun, the water and fire disappeared together, gradually turning into a vacuum. The power of the vacuum projected outwards, meeting the golden light that was shooting towards Yangqing. When the two sides collided, the golden light suddenly began to disintegrate. The four symbols yin-yang transformation, the transformation of Xiao-yang into the void, the yang within the yin, the wonderful state of empty yang. Yangqing raised his head and glanced at Shen Qifeng, and then shouted in a low voice, "Duo!" A clear light rushed out from the top of his head, and in the light, the figure of a tall giant started to condense. That giant had 4 faces and 8 arms. It was Yangqing's worldly dharma that he had cultivated in the later stages of Yuanying. The giant stepped on the void, supporting the heavens and the earth. His 8 arms held up the image of the 8 trigrams, and the 4 faces had different expressions. Some were calm, some were cultured and refined, some were grieving, and some were extremely angry. And the most eye-catching one was this tall giant with 4 faces and 8 arms. His figure was shockingly half black and half white. Yangqing revealed his worldly dharma, and then a huge amount of lunar true water and lunar true fire appeared beside him, and then rushed towards Shen Qifeng. Shen Qifeng wanted to use the karmic fire of the red lotus to block it, but was blasted apart by Yangqing's solar true fire. Rays of solar true fire that were like needles continuously exploded, forcefully breaking apart Shen Qifeng's karmic fire of the red lotus. The karmic fire of the red lotus was incomparably evil. Once it touched the body, it would be hard to dissolve, but the dark green lunar river surrounded Yangqing, making it hard for the karmic fire of the red lotus to approach. Facing Yang Qing's counterattack, Shen Qifeng sighed slightly, and his figure started to change, revealing his Yuan Shen incarnation. Powerful energy waves spread in the void, and Shen Qifeng's Yuan Shen incarnation was impressively another statue of Sakura heaven, but compared to the transformation of magic power, it was much more condensed and powerful. After revealing the statue of Sakura heaven, Shen Qifeng shouted in a low voice, "Brahman and I are as one." The power of the Nirvana pearl above his head added to his Yuan Shen incarnation, causing his aura to soar. Then, he stretched out the great Nirvana finger, which was much stronger than when he only used the Nirvana pearl to activate it. However, Yang Qing didn't seem to care about this, and still displayed the wondrous state of empty yang, using the power of the vacuum to attack Shen Qifeng's great Nirvana finger. Shen Qifeng looked at Yang Qing, and his expression was slightly solemn, and he started to spit out strange syllables that were breathtaking. These strange syllables seemed to converge into an ethereal ballad, which kept singing in the void. It was mysterious and unfathomable, and its meaning was difficult to understand. Hearing this ballad, Emo Xiaolua tilted his head slightly and glanced at Shen Qifeng. As the current sect leader of the reincarnation sect, and an expert of the Tao integration realm, Emo Xiaolua naturally recognized the strange Dharma spell that Shen Qifeng was using. It was a secret Dharma spell of the reincarnation sect, the reincarnation song. This Dharma spell had been completely lost after the death of the reincarnation Taoist. Even Shi Tianfang, who had died in the battle of the Xian extermination realm, had not learned it. This Dharma spell was a Dharma spell that had appeared again after the king of the underworld had been reborn, and he had passed it on to Emo Xiaolua and Shen Qifeng. However, Emo Xiaolua was still surprised that Shen Qifeng was able to cultivate this Dharma spell at the primordial soul incarnation realm. This boy's talent is even greater than his master, Shi Tianfang. In time, he will definitely become a great person. With this reincarnation song and the Brahma Pearl, he will be able to fight against many cultivators of the Return to Void stage. Hearing the reincarnation song, even Yang Qing's mind became slightly dazed. The heaven and earth Dharma idol above his head actually wavered for an instant. His divine sense also became unstable, as if it was about to leave his physical body and be sent into the cycle of reincarnation. Yang Qing frowned slightly and looked at Shen Qifeng. A cold glint appeared in his usually gentle eyes. At this moment, a change occurred in his pure gold and jade-green eyes. The golden pupil became pure white, and the jade-green pupil became pure black. It was as if his eyes were the two extremes of yin and yang. He clapped his palms together in front of his chest. In the next instant, the jade-green moon true water immediately covered his entire body and fused with it. In an instant, Yang Qing's entire body was jade-green, and it even shone with a watery light. It was as if he was a water person formed from the condensation of the moon true water. Then in the next instant his jade-green body became pure black. At the same time, the heaven and earth Dharma idol above Yang Qing's head also underwent the same change. It turned from half-white to half-white, and in the blink of an eye, it became completely black. On the surface of Yang Qing's body and his heaven and earth Dharma idol, which were both pure black, a layer of dark blue mist began to appear. Within the mist, there was a faint white light shining. Shen Qifeng's expression turned cold. He felt a nirvanic and resolute force from Yang Qing's body. The spiritual energy around her body started to be forcefully separated into yin and yang energy, whereas the yin energy silently turned into nothingness and was extinguished. The four symbols yin-yang transformation, the transformation of the moon entering silence, the yin within the yin, the silent yin extreme realm. Yang Qing, who seemed to have turned into a black water person, could still clearly see his facial features. However, at this moment, there was no expression on his face, and there was no emotion in his eyes. The place where he stood was completely silent. Even though he had manifested the silent yin extreme realm, Yang Qing's body and heaven and earth Dharma idol were still shaking under the effect of the song of reincarnation, which was strengthened by the Brahma's precious pearl. However, at this moment, Yang Qing's emotions did not seem to be affected by anything. He did not make any defense. He clasped his hands together, and a pale white light appeared between his palms. Then, it shot towards Shen Qifeng and enveloped him. Shen Qifeng knew that this was not good. Just as he was about to dodge, he saw that the world in front of him had suddenly changed from day to night. In the night sky, there was only a pale moon, like an eye, staring at him. For a moment, Shen Qifeng felt that his entire body was in darkness. Although the moon was shining above his head, he still could not see anything. When he lowered his head, he could not even see his limbs. There was only endless darkness. In this place, it was as if he had lost all his senses, such as sight, hearing, smell, and other senses. It was as if he had fallen into an endless abyss, sinking and sinking. All his consciousness, memories, emotions, and willpower were lost in the eternal silence, as if he had fallen into an eternal sleep. Only the pale moon above his head was left, watching him sleep alone silently. After being hit by Yangqing's solitary moon sleep, Shen Qifeng seemed to have become an unconscious, lifeless clay puppet in the eyes of others. The radiance on the surface of the primordial spirit incarnation was constantly peeling off and shattering. His entire primordial spirit seemed to be silently shattering. At this moment, the radiance of the Brahma's precious pearl suddenly dimmed. However, the constant vibration finally woke Shen Qifeng up. Although Shen Qifeng was startled, he felt that it was difficult to break free from the solitary moon sleep. In his consciousness, there was still only the pale moon shining on him silently, like an eye staring at him, suppressing all the mana in his body and preventing him from using it. His consciousness and thoughts were about to fall into a sluggish state again. But at this moment, a blurry shadow suddenly flew over from the side. As if ignoring the terrifying aura of mana around Yangqing, it followed Yangqing's mana and consciousness back to him. In the distant battlefield, Gu Peng and the Longevity Ancient Vine were entangled by two primordial true spirit-level beast god puppets, while the disobedient official Sikong Yu stealthily drove the fierce spirit temple towards Yangqing and Shen Qifeng. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.